Chapter 144. Do you know he did it? Hearing Su Rui's question, Wen Shu lowered her eyes, and the expression on her face was a little complicated. Su Yu, that child, is a poor child. I know he has been, alas. Wen Shu sighed and did not continue. Perhaps she felt that it was a bit strange to mention such a topic in front of her prospective son-in-law at this moment. Her husband's nephew had some kind of different desire for her. This kind of thing, a lady like Wen Shu, even if she knew it in her heart, she would not say it. The reason why she told Su Rui about this today was that Wen Shu felt that Su Rui seemed to have seen through the truth. Yes, this young man's eyes can really see through people's hearts. Feeling that Wen Shu didn't want to mention Su Yu again, Su Rui stopped asking. He put the container full of blood on the bedside cabinet, his palms down, qi gathered in his dantian, internal energy was released from his palms, and the full container of blood was constantly evaporating at a speed visible to the naked eye. When Wen Shu saw this kind of thing beyond the scope of science in front of her, she was stunned for a moment, then she noticed Su Rui's constantly pale face, and a gentle appreciation flashed in her eyes. This child not only didn't mind showing his difference in front of her, but even deliberately destroyed all the traces of the toxins Su Yu injected into her body, which was also a disguised protection for Wen Shu. Of course, everything he did was not because of how important she was to him. Everything was because of Xiao Wan. He loved Xiao Wan and loved her, so he would do his best to think for her. Thinking that her daughter, who she had been worried about, finally found a good home this time, the smile on Wen Shu's face became more gentle. When Su Rui finished doing everything, he raised his eyes and saw Wen Shu leaning against the bed, looking at himself with a gentle face, and a shallow smile on her lips. There was no window in the room, but at this moment, Wen Shu's body seemed to be shining with the sun. Su Rui began to understand a little why Su Yu, who lost his parents since childhood, had a paranoid feeling for Wen Shu, and why Jiangyu, who completely inherited Wen Shu's appearance, was so popular with men. It turned out that the aura of the female lead was inherited from her mother, but Wen Shu was born in a scholarly family. Her gentleness and gentleness in her bones was something that Jiangyu, who often helped with good intentions, couldn't match. Done. Retracting his thoughts, Su Rui smiled at Wen Shu. Auntie, I'll call them in. Uncle Su has been waiting anxiously outside for a long time. While speaking, Su Rui had already turned and walked towards the door of the bedroom. He gently opened the door and everyone's line of sight immediately turned towards Su Rui. Seeing that Su Rui's face was a bit pale, Su Wan immediately stepped forward and held his hand with concern. Are you okay? I'm fine. Su Rui smiled at Su Wan and looked up at Su Haicheng on the side. Uncle, Aunt has woken up. Why don't you go in and see her? What? Su Haicheng looked at Su Rui incredulously, then suddenly lifted his foot and rushed in. Passing by Su Haicheng, Su Rui directly raised his hand and closed the bedroom door. It's better if we don't disturb them at this time. Saying this, Su Rui's footsteps staggered, his entire body tilted and he directly fell into Su Wan's embrace. Su. Xiaoqi. Su Wan turned pale with fright and immediately supported Su Rui. You, don't scare me. I'm just too tired. Su Rui rested his head on Su Wan's thin shoulder, and even his tone became a little weak. Wife, can you help me back to your room to rest for a while? Okay. Su Wan immediately turned around and helped Su Rui walk towards her bedroom. Jiang Yu and Luo Yu, who were left outside the door, could only continue to be silently ignored. Su Wan's bedroom was not far from Wen Shu's bedroom. She struggled to help Su Rui into the bedroom. Su Wan was about to turn around and close the door when Su Rui, who was on her side, suddenly pressed over like weightlessness. As a result, the two people fell together on the furry carpet. There was not much pain on the body, but the noses of the two people hit each other heavily, which made Su Wan frown in pain, but at the moment she was more concerned about Su Rui's body. Are you okay? She raised her eyes and looked at the man on top of her with concern and anxiety. As a result, drip drops of bright red blood fell on Su Wan's face. Your nose is bleeding. Su Wan struggled a bit, trying to get out of Su Rui's body, but Su Rui suddenly leaned down and hugged Su Wan tightly. Wife, can you stop moving? I'll hold you for a while. Feeling the changes in a certain part of Su Rui's body, Su Wan's face immediately brightened. Chapter 145. Wen Shu's ability to wake up from a coma was the happiest thing in the Su family today. In the evening, Su Haicheng found the first chef of the Su family restaurant chain and cooked a sumptuous dinner in the villa. The long dining table was filled with 6 people. This was the most crowded and lively dinner in the Su family during this period. Su Haicheng and Wen Shu lived in the 2 main seats respectively, while Su Wan and Su Rui sat on the left, and Jiang Yu and Luo Yu sat on the right. During the dinner, Wen Shu kept smiling and adding dishes to her 2 daughters. Su Haicheng was also in a good mood, opened a bottle of red wine, and personally poured a glass of wine for Su Rui. "Little Chi, it's really thanks to you this time." From Little Xiao to Little Chi, although they were all calling the same person, the tone and meaning were completely different. In fact, Su Rui would rather Su Haicheng always call him Little Xiao. "It's much better than stingy Tilda on the other side of the table." Luo Yu saw that Su Haicheng actually bypassed him and directly poured wine for Su Rui, the country bumpkin, and young Master Luo's face immediately became gloomy. Feeling Luo Yu's displeasure, Jiang Yu's eyes turned, and immediately smiled and gave Luo Yu a piece of fish. "Luo Yu, try it, this dish is very delicious." Luo Yu saw Jiang Yu's smile, and his mood improved a lot in an instant, but when he saw the fish she put in his bowl, he couldn't help but frown. "Luo Yu doesn't eat fish, this is not a secret in Fengheng." "But Jiang Yu didn't know." "Wife, you should eat fish too. It's your favorite." At this time, Su Rui also smiled and gave Su Wan a piece of fish, and the bones were picked out by him. Su Wan had long been accustomed to General Su's attentiveness, but when Shu, who was sitting on the main seat, saw that Su Rui was so considerate and gentle to Su Wan, she couldn't help but smile and said softly, "Our family's Xiao Wan has loved to eat fish since she was a child. I remember that when she was 6 years old, she accidentally got stuck by a fishbone. At that time, this girl came out of the hospital and hugged me with snot and tears. She said that when she grew up, she must find a husband who could help her pick out fishbones. I didn't expect her wish to come true so soon." Hearing Wen Shu's words, Su Haicheng's gaze towards Su Rui became softer. In fact, after Su Rui rescued Wen Shu, Su Haicheng had already acknowledged this son-in-law in his heart. Now he was a father-in-law looking at his son-in-law. The more he looked at him, the more pleasing he was. When Jiang Yu heard her parents praise Xiao Qi so much, she suddenly felt a little dazed for a while. Zhao Mai loved to eat fish, and Jiang Yu grew up with her adoptive mother and developed this habit. She still remembers that when she was a child, the Xiao brothers would often quietly give her the leftover fish at home to eat, and every time the bones were removed. At that time, Jiang Yu didn't feel anything. Now that she saw her big brother Xiao being so gentle and considerate to Su Wan, Jiang Yu's heart was a little complicated and difficult to explain for a while. It turned out that big brother Xiao would be so gentle and even more gentle to her than this, but she had never been aware of it. But now, he would rarely look at her in the eye. Like Jiang Yu, Luo Yu's heart was also a little strange. When Su Wan was with him before, he didn't like to eat fish, and Su Wan never ate fish with him. At that time, Luo Yu thought that she didn't eat fish like him. Unexpectedly, this may be the difference between loving and being loved. Luo Yu, who was loved by Su Wan, only saw the shortcomings of the other party, but never paid attention to what the young lady who loved him had done for him. Now, Luo Yu loves Jiang Yu, and he is willing to give everything for Jiang Yu, but Jiang Yu, who was loved by him like this, didn't notice what Luo Yu needed. In love, it's not necessarily that whoever is moved first will lose. The loser is always the one whose efforts and returns are not proportional. He, she, may not be the one who is moved first, but after being moved, he will always be the one who pays the most. After a somewhat sullen dinner, Luo Yu said goodbye to the Su family, and Jiang Yu was also very sensible and sent him out of the door. As for General Su, Su Haicheng was impressed by his medical skills and took the initiative to invite Su Rui to stay for a while and observe Wen Shu's body. For this request, Su Rui naturally agreed. But seeing Su Haicheng instructing the servants to clean up the guest room for him, General Su's face immediately turned cold. "Uncle, you don't have to be so troublesome." Su Rui, as always, intimately embraced Su Wan's shoulder. "I can stay in the same room with Xiao Wan." I can't sleep without her. Su Haicheng, you really have the nerve to say this in front of me, your future father-in-law? Well, my family's Xiao Wan will be handed over to you. Without waiting for Su Haicheng to answer, Wen Shu on the side had already smiled and agreed to Su Rui's request. Madam. Su Haicheng looked at Wen Shu with some surprise. Wen Shu leaned over to Su Haicheng's ear and whispered a few words. Su Haicheng's expression changed several times, and then he let Wen Shu pull him upstairs. He acquiesced to Su Rui's unreasonable request. Guess what Wen Shu and Su Haicheng said? Su Rui continued to rest his chin on Su Wan's small shoulder and asked with a smile. I can't guess. Su Wan doesn't know martial arts, and her hearing is naturally not as sharp as Su Rui's. She and Su Haicheng said. Su Rui slowly raised his face, and his lips moved to Su Wan's ear. He was about to continue speaking, but suddenly there was another annoying voice behind the two people. Big brother Xiao. Jiangyu came in from the door and saw Su Rui sticking to Su Wan's side and seemed to be kissing her earlobe. At that moment, Jiangyu's brain was blank, and she subconsciously shouted Big brother Xiao, interrupting Su Rui's action. Really in the way? Su Rui whispered discontentedly, turned his face, and looked coldly at Jiangyu who came from the door. What's the matter? Big brother Xiao, thank you for saving my mother. I really don't know how to thank you. At this moment, Jiangyu looked at Su Rui sincerely in front of her, and many past scenes flashed in her mind. When Zhao Mai was hospitalized last year, and when Zhao Mai died, Jiangyu, who was alone at that time, was completely at a loss and didn't know what to do. Every time, Xiao Qi stepped forward and did his best to help her. He also silently supported and encouraged her. These things had been gradually forgotten by Jiangyu with the beginning of her new life, but today, seeing her big brother Xiao once again turn the tide and save her biological mother from the line of life and death, Jiangyu's gratitude and dependence on Xiao Qi in her heart was awakened again. It has always been big brother Xiao who has been helping me. I really feel that it is the greatest luck in my life to be able to know you. At this moment, Jiangyu just wanted to express the surging gratitude in her heart. Well, she really didn't mean it. She didn't mean to find a sense of existence in front of other people's girlfriends. But this kind of misunderstanding-inducing attitude is really not very good, at least Su Wan doesn't like it. She hates other women looking at Su Rui with admiration or dependence. What are you looking at? Haven't seen a man before? Well, when you really love someone, and the love is unforgettable, then it is absolutely normal to turn into a little vinegar jar. Achie, I'm tired. You carry me upstairs, let's wash and sleep. Su Wan did not directly flip out at Jiangyu. Su Wan had a deep understanding of the female lead, Daren's degree of brain damage. She would not waste time talking nonsense with her. At this time, Su Wan just said softly while raising her hand and gently pulling Su Rui's finger. Okay, wife. Hearing Su Wan's words, Su Rui didn't even think about it. He immediately carried his wife in his arms, and then smiled and carried Su Wan up the stairs quickly. As for the female lead, Daren's gratitude, what the hell is that? Walking to the bedroom door, Su Wan suddenly struggled desperately in Su Rui's arms. Su Rui was stunned and subconsciously let go of his hand and put her down. Wife, you. Su Rui hadn't finished speaking when he was forced to lean against the wall next to the bedroom door by Su Wan in front of him. Stick to the wall, don't move. Su Wan looked at Su Rui with a cold face and sharp eyes. General Su, who didn't know what crime he had committed, was treated so coldly by his wife for the first time. For a while, he stared blankly at Su Wan. Then General Su saw a scene that made his heart beat faster. Su Wan, who was not tall, raised her arm and supported herself on the wall with one hand. Although her arm only reached the position of Su Rui's shoulder, Su Wan still raised her other hand in a particularly domineering manner. While hugging Su Rui's neck, she stood on tiptoe and kissed him fiercely, wall-tapping and whatnot. It's definitely a killer move to show affection. Chapter 146. After returning to the Su family, Jiangyu had insomnia for the first time. This night, as long as Jiangyu closed her eyes, she would see the picture of Su Wan standing on tiptoe and pressing brother Xiao to kiss, and when she opened her eyes and looked at the ceiling, Jiang Yu could see Brother Xiao suddenly turning around and pressing Su Wan into his arms and kissing her more passionately. In short, the Su couple is really the first person among the mission enforcers to successfully use the ultimate skill of showing affection to make the heroine of a world lose sleep. The next morning, Jiang Yu was woken up by the alarm clock for the first time. With 2 dark circles under her eyes, she hurriedly put on her school uniform and went out of the door. As a result, when she just walked to the door of Su Wan's room, Su Wan also opened the door. At the door, Su Wan was wearing loose pajamas and still looked sleepy. Obviously, she also just got up. Noticing the hickeys under Su Wan's collarbone, Jiang Yu's face immediately became a little embarrassed. "Wife, I'm done bathing, you should go wash up." At this time, Su Rui's voice suddenly came from the bedroom. It turned out that the 2 people who were tired of each other for most of the night last night were busy washing up because they got up late this morning. It was obviously a bit crowded to use the same bathroom at the same time, so Su Wan simply gave her bathroom to Su Rui. She just opened the door and planned to go out to the innermost independent bathroom on the 2nd floor to wash up. She didn't expect to see Jiang Yu at the door. "Xiao, Brother Xiao." Hearing Su Rui's voice, Jiang Yu subconsciously glanced behind Su Wan. As a result, she saw a man wearing a white bathrobe, wiping the water droplets on his hair while walking out slowly. Right now, Su Rui looked particularly sexy. His loose white bathrobe exposed his firm and charming chest. On his strong and sexy muscles, there were sparkling and translucent water droplets glimmering faintly. And the red kiss mark on his chest made people's imaginations roam. Jiang Yu only glanced at it, and her whole face turned red. You guys are busy, I'll go downstairs first." As she spoke, she had already turned around and fled. At this time, Su Wan also turned around, raised her eyebrows, and looked up and down at Su Rui. "Wife, why are you looking at me?" General Su was a little inexplicable by Su Wan's gaze, and a very bad feeling suddenly welled up in his heart. From it, Su Wan took a step forward and grabbed a corner of Su Rui's bathrobe, pulling him in front of her. Her other hand took the opportunity to pinch the soft flesh on his waist. "Speak, did you do it on purpose?" "Su Rui. This general is innocent." "Ah. Wife, why are you so observant? You even discovered that I deliberately came out to seduce the female lead." All right, General Su admitted that he did it on purpose, but it wasn't for the female lead. He just wanted to see his wife's jealous look again. Moreover, when he thought about how his wife would take the initiative after eating the wrong thing, General Su felt that those experts who were full of nonsense were right about one thing. Being jealous is good for your health, Tilda. When Shu, who had just woken up from a coma, did not go downstairs in the morning. Su Haicheng, the 24 filial good husband, naturally accompanied his wife upstairs. Therefore, only Su Wan, Su Rui, and the female lead Darren were left in the dining room on the 1st floor of Su's house. Jiang Yu, who had not rested well last night, had to be bitterly shown off by General Su's show of affection at the dinner table. Even when he was about to go out, Su Rui still reluctantly pulled Su Wan to him and kissed her hard. Only then did he go to work in the studio contentedly. Seeing Jiang Yu's bitter face all morning, Su Wan was really comfortable. This time, both of them were sitting in the back seat of the car. Su Wan hummed a little love song along the way. Her face was flushed with success, making Jiang Yu frown. Until they arrived at the school gate, watching Su Wan quickly get out of the car with her school bag, Jiang Yu immediately chased after her. "Xiao Wan, I have something to say to you." "Speak." Su Wan continued to walk forward and did not stop to wait for her. Fortunately, Jiang Yu had long been accustomed to Su Wan's cold attitude towards herself. She quickly chased after Su Wan's footsteps, biting her lip, and seemed to have made a lot of mental preparations. Then she said in a low voice, "Xiao Wan, you and Brother Xiao, are you serious about him? Does it have anything to do with you? This is between me and Xiao Qi. You just take care of yourself and Luo Yu." Hearing Jiang Yu's words, Su Wan's footsteps paused, and her tone was still as cold as ever. After Jiang Yu heard Su Wan mention Luo Yu's name, her face immediately became a little tangled. "Xiao Wan, do you still like Luo Yu?" So you deliberately got together with brother Xiao to anger Luo Yu, isn't it? Xiao Wan, don't be like this. Brother Xiao is a good person. If you hate me and Luo Yu, you can find us to vent your anger. Don't involve innocent people. Su Wan was speechless about the female lead's divine logic, okay? Seeing Su Wan's calm face and not talking, Jiangyu thought she was right. She immediately looked at Su Wan more sincerely. Xiao Wan, we are sisters, there shouldn't be any unsolvable knot. I really got together with him after you and Luo Yu broke up. If you are unhappy because of this, I will go find Luo Yu to break up. Oh. This time, Su Wan's cold face finally had an expression. You are willing to break up with Luo Yu? Just for Xiao Qi? Su Wan's question naturally led to some reverie, but according to the meaning Jiang Yu had just expressed, wasn't that the meaning? Seeing that Su Wan had finally loosened up, Jiang Yu was more determined in her guess. She hesitated for a while, and immediately nodded vigorously. I am willing, as long as you, no need. Suddenly, a young man's clear and indifferent voice came from behind. Jiang Yu froze in place, staring at Luo Yu in the early morning sun, standing quietly beside the two people. Let's break up now. Luo Yu glanced at Jiang Yu. The pride belonging to the Luo family made him unable to tolerate his love being trampled on like this. In fact, at the dining table yesterday, Luo Yu saw Jiang Yu staring at Xiao Qi in a daze. At that time, he already had some premonitions. Today, he heard Jiang Yu's words with his own ears, and Luo Yu had to express his position at this time. Although he appreciated and liked this girl, Luo Yu had his own principles and his own pride. Luo Yu in this life did not hate Su Wan as much as he did in the original mission world, and without Su Wan's negative contrast, he did not love Jiang Yu as deeply as in the original world. So, at this moment, he said that he wanted to break up. Although he was a little uncomfortable, he did not feel heart-wrenching. Luo Yu, Jiang Yu was stunned in place, watching Luo Yu stride away step by step, as if he could no longer enter his own life in this life. At this moment, Jiang Yu's heart suddenly hurt. Only then did she realize that she had unknowingly fallen in love with Luo Yu again and again under his help and consideration. But if love and benevolence are destined to be incompatible, then... Thinking of brother Xiao's family's help to herself, Jiang Yu hardened her heart again, and looked stubbornly at the culprit Su Wan in front of her. Now that Luo Yu and I have broken up, you have to keep your promise and let brother Xiao go. Seeing the female lead in front of her with a righteous and self-sacrificing expression, Su Wan couldn't help but chuckle. Jiang Yu, did you leave your IQ at home when you went out this morning? Whether you and Luo Yu break up or not, does it have anything to do with me? Xiao Qi and I are living well, but I plan to spend a lifetime with him. Finished speaking, Su Wan forcefully flung her school bag and quickly turned around to leave. Su Wan. Jiang Yu stood in place, staring at Su Wan's back, and her eyes became a little complicated. How can you do this to me? Chapter 147. The news that Luo Yu and Jiang Yu broke up quickly spread throughout Fengheng College. Of course, Luo Yu's crazy support group, which only appeared in Xiaobai's idol drama, did not appear. With Jiang Yu's skill, who dares to trouble her? On Fengheng's forum, there were different opinions about the end of Luo Yu's love affair. Most of them speculated that Luo Yu and Jiang Yu's breakup must have something to do with Su Wan. In short, as a cannon fodder X, Su Wan had to be shot every time. Fortunately, she was not completely innocent this time. At least in Jiang Yu's heart, the culprit who caused her and Luo Yu to break up this time was Su Wan. So when school was over, Jiang Yu once again blocked Su Wan's way. This was the first time she looked at Su Wan condescendingly. Short people can't afford to be hurt. Su Wan was stopped by Jiang Yu and couldn't help but frown. What's the matter? Su Wan thought that Jiang Yu would continue to discuss brother Xiao with her. As a result, this time Jiang Yu's style changed. She stared at Su Wan's face and asked loudly, Su Wan, now that you see that I broke up with Luo Yu, are you very happy? Su Wan. I already said that whether you two are together or not, it has nothing to do with me. Anyway, you will be NPC in the future. What's the point of splitting up? For Jiang Yu's questioning, Su Wan couldn't help but roll her eyes. There is a state called speechlessness, please see Su Xiaowan. Why don't you speak? Are you feeling guilty? Seeing that Su Wan didn't speak, Jiang Yu began to be aggressive again. Su Wan, what did I do wrong to you? You grew up in the Su family without worrying about food and clothing. What about me? Do you know how much I suffered with my adoptive mother? You've occupied the identity that belongs to me. Have I ever argued with you about it? There was a large group of gossipy onlookers around the classroom. At this moment, when they heard Jiang Yu's words, everyone couldn't help but whisper. Where did the word occupied come from? In fact, most people really don't know the true identity of Jiang Yu and Su Wan. Seeing that Jiang Yu finally revealed each other's identities in a blabbermouth situation, Su Wan was not surprised. In the original plot, in the face of Su Wan's repeated provocations, Jiang Yu also broke out in an unbearable situation and inadvertently revealed the true identity of the two people. Since then, Su Wan has become an inferior person that everyone looked down upon in Fengheng. She was also forced to leave Fengheng because she couldn't stand such a blow. I didn't say that you're sorry. Why are you so agitated? Su Wan finally spoke slowly. At the same time, she threw her bag on the table at the door and her sharp gaze swept across the onlookers. I think everyone seems to be more interested in our identity. In fact, you guys still don't know, right? I am not the eldest miss of the Su family. Jiang Yu is the real eldest miss. I am just a child who was wrongly reported by the Su family. No, to be exact, my mother selfishly wanted her daughter to live a good life, so after I was born, she swapped me with Jiang Yu. Ah. Oh my God. Hearing Su Wan's words, the crowd immediately burst into exclamations. Is this the legendary leopard cat replacing the crown prince? Su Wan, you, seeing that Su Wan said everything, Jiang Yu's face changed. Why are you? In her heart, she always knew that Su Wan's most taboo was her identity, but now Su Wan actually admitted her identity in front of everyone. What's going on? Jiang Yu was stunned and looked at Su Wan incredulously. Jiang Yu, I told you not to use your IQ, but your eyes look at others. In your eyes, it's just a trivial matter that's not worth mentioning. I don't care about the identity of the Su family's daughter. I don't care whether you are with Luo Yu or with others. It has always been your wishful thinking that interferes with my life. Now I warn you one last time, don't harass me anymore, and don't harass Xiao Qi. He won't be as easy to talk to as me. As she spoke, Su Wan elegantly picked up her school bag and put it on her back, and walked into the crowd. Excuse me, make way. When the onlookers around heard Su Wan's words, they immediately consciously gave Su Wan a way out, but in the end, there was still a tall figure blocking Su Wan's way. Su Wan raised her head in surprise, and as a result, she met Luo Yu's handsome face. What's the matter? She frowned and looked at the boy in front of her, and her tone was as cold as ever. I'm driving today, I'll take you back. Luo Yu also spoke coldly, but as he spoke, he had already grabbed Su Wan's school bag with his height advantage and carried it in his hand. Then, regardless of whether Su Wan agreed or not, Luo Yu turned around and strode away. Su Wan, it's not right for you to be so arrogant. Su Wan can only give a bad comment for the male lead's overbearing CEO-like actions. However, when she thought that she really didn't want to go back in the same car with Jiang Yu, Su Wan finally quickly caught up with Luo Yu's footsteps. The two people left side by side, one tall and one short, two figures, but they looked more harmonious than before. Without the excitement to watch, the people in the corridor gradually dispersed. Jiang Yu was still standing at the door of the classroom looking at the empty corridor, and the picture of Luo Yu and Su Wan leaving side by side kept flashing in her heart. Sure enough, Su Wan still cares about Luo Yu. Everything she did was to make Luo Yu change his mind. Jiang Yu bit her lips tightly, and unknowingly, her vermilion lips had oozed bright red blood. Xiao Yu, it's not worth it for a man like Luo Yu. Ouyang Luo's voice suddenly sounded behind her. Today, Ouyang Dashao was wearing a set of beige casual clothes. At this time, he was posing, leaning against the window behind Jiang Yu, looking at Jiang Yu affectionately and distressed. I'm fine. Hearing Ouyang Luo's voice, Jiang Yu immediately wiped the blood on her lips, turned her head, and smiled at him with a forced smile. Jiang Yu didn't know that Ouyang Luo had already fallen in love at first sight for a long time. She only really knew Ouyang Luo a week ago. At that time, Ouyang Luo was suffering from chunibia, and he was alone on the school rooftop. As a result, he was met by Jiang Yu, who went upstairs to clean up. Ouyang Luo, who did not wear a school uniform, was regarded as an outsider by Jiang Yu, and seeing him wandering on the rooftop, Jiang Yu thought he was going to commit suicide, so she immediately used her vigorous skills to save the delinquent teenager. Well, to be precise, it was because of Jiang Yu's sudden appearance that Ouyang Luo almost lost his footing and fell downstairs. But in the face of Jiang Yu's caring eyes and those sincere words of comfort, Ouyang Luo's little heart, which had a good impression of her, was immediately conquered by the little angel in front of him. He felt that Jiang Yu was sent by God to save him. It must be so. When he was sure that he had been moved, Ouyang Luo, who was planning to conquer his sweetheart with his demonic and domineering charm, inadvertently saw Luo Yu and Jiang Yu holding hands on the campus. It turned out that the goddess was already taken, and the glass heart of a chunibia immediately broke into pieces. Ouyang Luo felt that he was lovelorn, and the pain of lovelorn made him forget his original plan to deal with Su Wan. Today, Ouyang Luo, who was bored and wandering in the school forum, suddenly saw the news that Luo Yu and Jiang Yu broke up. His first feeling was not ecstasy, but anger. Our family's Jiang Yu little angel is so kind and cute. Luo Yu dared to betray her? It's really unforgivable. Unforgivable, achoo. The unforgivable scumbag had sneezed at this time and came to his car. Luo Yu's car was a very low-key Audi. After all, unlike government officials and businessmen, their Luo family has always been low-key. Sit down. After Luo Yu unlocked the car, he went directly to the other side of the car, opened the front passenger's door, and raised his hand and threw Su Wan's school bag into the car. Su Wan raised her eyes and glanced at Luo Yu. When we were together before, I didn't see you open the door for me so attentively. Hearing Su Wan's teasing words, Luo Yu's face turned serious. Indeed, I didn't take too much into account your feelings before. Su Wan, I owe you an apology. Oh. Su Wan raised an eyebrow at Luo Yu. You won't be like Jiang Yu, that retard, thinking that I really want to get back together with you, right? Kai hearing Su Wan's words, Luo Yu couldn't help but smile. Su Wan, I think I really know you today. In fact, Luo Yu was also absent-minded today. He was thinking about himself and Jiang Yu all day long. Even after school in the evening, he involuntarily walked to the door of her classroom. Because of this, Luo Yu heard and saw the confrontation between Jiang Yu and Su Wan. At that moment, somehow, Luo Yu's mind suddenly became clear. What does he like about Jiang Yu? Kindness and innocence. Or pure enthusiasm. In fact, Luo Yu noticed Jiang Yu at first, not because of her beauty, nor because of her excellent skills and righteous character, but at that time, Su Wan often said that Jiang Yu was wrong in front of him, and Luo Yu naturally put Su Wan's words on Jiang Yu. As a result, he found that the girl was much better than what Su Wan said. It was also from that time that Luo Yu began to notice Jiang Yu, watching her greet Su Wan with a smile again and again, and after being thwarted again and again, her face was full of smiles. That smile made Luo Yu feel excited. But today, when he saw Jiang Yu chasing after Su Wan and questioning her, his heart suddenly faded a lot. In fact, what's the difference between Jiang Yu and other girls? She is just an ordinary girl. If there is a difference, she is also beautiful, and she also has good kung fu, but that's all. Luo Yu remembered the girls he had known since he was a child, and the girls he had dated, they were not worse than Jiang Yu. No one is perfect, everyone in this world will have their own personality, their own shortcomings. Just like Su Wan. She used to be full of shortcomings in his eyes, but in fact, as long as you carefully explore her, you can still find her excellent side. As a top student, Luo Yu's way of looking at and solving problems is also very fast. Thinking of Su Wan's silent accommodations to himself in the past, Luo Yu felt that he owed her an apology, and she could afford this sentence. As for looking back, Luo Yu didn't think about getting back together with Su Wan, because now his heart couldn't completely tell Jiang Yu to let go, and he also understood that he had no feelings for Su Wan for a long time. He took the initiative to send her off today, just for that apology. Chapter 148. Su Wan's life experience was finally no longer a secret in Fengheng, and Ouyang Luo, who originally planned to use her identity to attack her, could only temporarily stop, waiting for the next opportunity to embarrass Su Wan. Since Luo Yu sent Su Wan home that day, the news of Luo Yu and Su Wan's old love has naturally begun to spread silently in the school. Unfortunately, since then, the two people have no intersection. Luo Yu concentrated on preparing for the college entrance examination, and Su Wan began to concentrate on her studies without Jiang Yu's harassment. In a blink of an eye, it was the annual Christmas. Fengheng has the habit of holding a masquerade party every year on a carnival night, and the whole school's teachers and students will attend this dance. In fact, Su Wan had no interest in this kind of dance, but Su Rui's studio's game has entered the most important testing stage, so he can't accompany Su Wan for Christmas. Under boredom, Su Wan had to order a witch's robe in a special shop, and went to the school's banquet hall with little interest, ready to watch the beginning of the teacher-student relationship between the female lead and Wen Wenhao. As Su Wan knows, Jiang Yu has been preparing for this dance. During this period, she has gradually come out of her relationship with Luo Yu. In fact, Jiang Yu also thought of looking for her childhood sweetheart, Brother Xiao, to expose Su Wan's true face in front of him. Unfortunately, how could General Su give her this opportunity? Although Su Rui also lived in the Su family during this period, Jiang Yu didn't even have a chance to talk to him alone. After a long time, Jiang Yu saw that Su Rui really didn't like her, so she could only put this matter in the bottom of her heart. For tonight's masquerade party, Jiang Yu chose Snow White's blue princess dress, with her slim figure, white skin, and snow-like black hair. It really has a dreamlike feeling. Everyone tonight wore masks to hide their true identity. Jiang Yu's face was wearing a half-face mask embroidered with white flowers and lace edges. Coupled with the snow-white style, she immediately became the focus of the crowd. In contrast, Su Wan wore a black witch's robe and a dark golden full-face mask covered with strange lines on her face. Her whole body was wrapped in darkness, revealing only a pair of cold eyes and a gorgeous red lips. This style is comparable to those unconventional vampires at the ball, but such a strange style is considered a minority. After all, they are all 17 or 18 years old. Which girl doesn't want to be beautiful? Which girl doesn't yearn for love? In the banquet hall, there were dancing princes and knights everywhere, as well as beautiful princesses and elves. Dancing was Jiang Yu's weakness, so although people kept inviting her to dance all night, she finally refused them, until a man wearing a silver-white priest robe came to her. She didn't know what he said to Jiang Yu. Jiang Yu hesitated for a moment, then slowly entered the dance floor with him. Su Wan knew that the person wearing priest attire was Wen Wenhao. The so-called refined scum probably referred to this kind of person. Can I sit here? A weak female voice suddenly sounded beside Su Wan. Su Wan slightly turned her head and saw a girl wearing a silver-grey mask and a grey dress standing beside her. There is no one here, Cinderella. Su Wan saw that the other party's coarse cloth dress was a bit familiar, as if it was what Cinderella wore at the beginning of the fairy tale. When she heard Su Wan's words, the girl smiled slightly. I have to be Cinderella, the one who dances with the prince on the dance floor, wearing crystal shoes. I am just Cinderella's sister. Without Cinderella's good luck, Cinderella's sister was jealous of Cinderella, who was loved by the prince. She had no magic, no crystal shoes. Everyone only remembered that Cinderella was bullied by her stepmother and sister at the beginning, but no one cared about how her sister lived after Cinderella and the prince were happy. Compared with Cinderella, who was favored by God and favored by the prince, her sister could only be regarded as cannon fodder. Cinderella's sister? When Su Wan heard the other party's words, she immediately sat up straight and looked at the girl sitting opposite her with great interest. I have a magic mirror. Do you want me to ask the magic mirror who will be your fated lover? Fated lover. When the girl heard Su Wan's words, her gaze absent-mindedly stared at a certain place in the banquet hall for a while. After a while, she came back to her senses, smiled and shook her head at Su Wan. Doesn't your magic mirror only tell you who is the most beautiful person in the world? When did it upgrade to a new version? It has many uses. When you appeared, it already told me who you are. Su Wn slightly leaned her body. That pair of pitch-black eyes under the strange mask looked particularly charming. You know who I am. Hearing Su Wan's words, the girl who claimed to be Cinderella's sister also seemed to be interested, looking at Su Wn with some faint expectation. In fact, she didn't believe that Su Wn could recognize her, because at this moment, she was the other self that she carefully hid on ordinary days. You are Shu Nuo. Su Wn smiled at the girl opposite her and called out her name in a low voice. Shu Nuo stiffened on the sofa and stared blankly at Su Wan's eyes. You. How did you know? I guessed. Su Wn smiled at Shu Nuo. In fact, she really didn't know that she was Shu Nuo at first, but when Shu Nuo was in a daze just now, Su Wn noticed that she had been staring in a certain direction, and that direction was very remote, with only a lonely figure. The man was wearing a black night outfit, and his whole face was covered by a mask. He stood alone outside the crowd. Perhaps his aura was too strong, but no one dared to come forward and greet him easily. That night, he was Luo Yu. And the girl who could recognize Luo Yu at a glance, who could silently pay attention to him, and who could claim to be Cinderella's sister, Su Wn could only think of Shu Nuo. In fact, Shu Nuo had always been secretly in love with Luo Yu, but she was a girl who was very good at hiding her thoughts. These were not mentioned in the world plot that Su Wn knew, which showed how perfect Shu Nuo usually hid. However, when you love someone and care about someone, the way you look at him will be different. You will involuntarily pay attention to his every move, even a slight blink. Therefore, some of Shu Nuo's attention to Luo Yu was finally discovered by Su Wn by accident. Shu Nuo, whose identity was guessed by Su Wn, was stunned for a while, and finally smiled with relief. Su Wn, you are really different from before. Before, I hated you a little, but now I really like you a little. Shu Nuo suddenly stood up, raised her arm and pulled Su Wn up from the sofa. Your Excellency, which, I don't know if I can have the honor to ask you for a dance. Su Wn looked at her right hand that was grabbed by Shu Nuo. Can I still refuse? Cinderella's sister? Hee. Shu Nuo stuck out her tongue slightly, and then pulled Su Wn into the center of the dance floor. At this time, there were a lot of people dancing. Su Wn also noticed that Jiang Yu and Wen Wenhao were still dancing. The two people were very close. Wen Wenhao was almost hugging Jiang Yu and dancing. It seemed that he was teaching her to dance very carefully. In fact, the posture of the two people at this time was already extremely ambiguous. Seeing that Su Wn had been carelessly looking around, Shu Nuo opened her mouth and was about to say something to Su Wn. Suddenly, her back was pushed by someone, and Shu Nuo immediately fell out of the dance floor. This change came suddenly. Su Wn just wanted to reach out and hold Shu Nuo, but her wrist was already tightly held by a big hand. Don't move, you are now this Marquis prey. A messy silver hair, a dark and elegant tuxedo. Su Wn raised her eyes and saw a dark red mask. The owner of the mask was smiling at Su Wn at the moment, revealing two sharp teeth that belonged to a vampire. Why are you here? Su Wan's tone was full of surprise. She recognized the handsome vampire in front of her at a glance. It was her family's General Su. Wife, you recognized me at a glance. It's great. When Su Rui saw that Su Wn recognized him, he immediately grabbed Su Wan's hand and brought her into his arms. I wanted to give you a surprise, let's dance together. Dancing with Su Rui was definitely a physical work. Su Wn had already experienced this, so she turned her eyes and immediately thought of an excuse. Wait a minute, I'll go see Shu Nuo first. No need. Su Rui forcibly pressed Su Wan's arms so that she couldn't turn around and leave. I just saw the boss and directly pushed her into Luo Yu's arms. Ian, no one needs to thank me, please call me Lei Feng. Chapter 149. The atmosphere of the carnival night was just right, and the constantly flashing lights of the auditorium were dazzling. Su Rui held Su Wan's arm, and the two started to dance slowly on the edge of the dance floor. Slowly, Su Rui began to take Su Wn to the center of the dance floor, and soon after, the two people turned to Wen Wenhao and Jiang Yu. At this time, Jiang Yu has mastered the most basic footwork under Wen Wenhao's gentle and careful teaching. The two people just had some tacit understanding, and they were staring at each other with gentle eyes. It seemed that the atmosphere was romantic. Wife, give them something exciting. Su Rui turned his face sideways, his lips leaned against Su Wan's witch hat, and his long fangs bit the brim of her hat twice. Naughty Su Wn couldn't help but smile slyly at Su Wan. In the next second, she had already made a gorgeous turn. When she turned to Jiang Yu's side, the high-heeled shoes under her feet immediately stepped on the snow-white dress at an accurate angle. The quality of the dress in the specialized store was naturally guaranteed. The kind of situation where the dress was torn apart with one step did not happen, but because Su Wn used all her strength in this foot, and she had already aimed at the angle before she stepped down. As a result, under her foot, the princess dress on Jiang Yu's body, which was originally designed as a shoulder, immediately fell off, revealing the white underwear inside. The accident came too suddenly. The moment she realized that she was exposed, Jiang Yu immediately screamed. Wen Wenhao's eyes flashed in front of her. Because he didn't wear glasses, Wen Wenhao only saw a flash of black in the crowd, and did not catch the culprit who deliberately teased Jiang Yu. At this time, Jiang Yu's scream had attracted the attention of the people around her. Wen Wenhao decisively took off his priest robe, and the whole robe just wrapped around Jiang Yu's body. It's okay, don't be afraid. Wen Wenhao was only wearing a thin white shirt. He bent down and held Jiang Yu's whole body in his arms. I'll take you away first. At this time, Jiang Yu still looked panicked. Seeing the gentle and intimate eyes under Wen Wenhao's mask, she immediately subconsciously buried her face in his warm chest. This person's embrace was very warm, and it made her feel especially at ease. Looking at Wen Wenhao holding Jiang Yu and leaving the dance floor, looking at the man's back, Su Rui pulled the corner of his mouth and whispered in the crowd, "Hey, I recognize that shirt, isn't that Teacher Wen?" Wen Wenhao was also a relatively famous teacher in Fengheng. He was young and handsome, and just by looking at his clothes, one could tell that he had an extraordinary background. Wen Wenhao wore white shirts the longest, and he only wore one brand. Hearing Su Rui's voice, the people on the dance floor couldn't help but turn their eyes to the gate. At this time, Wen Wenhao had already walked to the gate with Jiang Yu in his arms. Naturally, he couldn't hear the whispers behind. Who is dancing with Teacher Wen? I don't know. She didn't even bring her skirt. Is she planning to go topless? Someone in the crowd couldn't help but make some malicious guesses, which immediately ignited the fire of gossip. Could the person with Wen Wenhao be a teacher? Or a female student? TSK, it seems that there has never been a teacher-student relationship in Fengheng. It must be known that these students in Fengheng are either rich or noble. They have high standards and strict family education. Even if some playboys are very happy playing outside, even if they don't give Principal Ouyang face in school, for the sake of their parents' face, they always have to pretend to be good students. In this school where all the second generation of officials and rich second generation of D-City are gathered, if you really have any scandal, you will really be famous in the whole city. While everyone was discussing and guessing, Su Rui had slipped out of the side door of the auditorium with Su Wn. The night wind outside was bitterly cold. Su Wn subconsciously tightened the robe on her body. The next second, Su Rui had hugged her tightly from behind. Wife, let's go home. Su Wan nodded. The home Su Rui mentioned was not Su family, but the small apartment they used to rent near the school. Everything in the apartment was still the same as before she left. Su Wan hired hourly workers to come over and do a simple cleaning at noon every day. Opening the door of the apartment, a warm air rushed to her face. Su Wan raised her hand to turn on the light at the door, but was stopped by Su Rui. Don't turn on the light. Su Rui pressed Su Wan against the door and kissed her face. Xiao Wan, guess what Wen Wenhao and Jiang Yu are doing? How would I know? Su Wan said as she raised her hand and pulled out the two fangs that had been messing with her face in Su Rui's mouth. Why don't we observe Teacher Wen's skills? Su Rui suddenly took out a small receiver from his arms and shook it in front of Su Wan. I just seemed to have accidentally glued the newly developed miniature camera in the company to Jiang Yu's hair. Your mother, is there such a careless thing? It's clearly intentional. Su Wn raised her eyes and looked at the receiver in Su Rui's hand seriously. You seem to be very interested in Jiangyu. Wife, I. Just as Su Rui was about to explain, Su Wn had quickly grabbed the receiver in his hand. It just so happens that I am also very curious about Wen Wenhao's skills. It is said that this person's equipment is big, lively, good, and extraordinary. He can take care of Jiangyu in one go. It's understandable that some guys with inferior skills are eager to observe him. Wife, I was wrong. It's immoral to peek at others. Hearing Su Wan's words, Su Rui's face immediately darkened. Wife, what's so good about Wen Wenhao? Does he have an 8-pack? Does he have a fishing line? Is he as handsome as me? Wife, you turn on the light, how about I let you look? General Su was very regretful at the moment. How could he forget that Wen Wenhao, that gigolo, was one of the most ferocious men in the world? Your mother, looking at such a weak and scholarly gigolo, but he had sex 7 times in one night. General Su thought that this was absolutely unscientific, okay? Of course, if his skills were good, he could definitely kill this gigolo in seconds. Just as Su Rui was distracted, Su Wn had already turned on the light and connected the high-tech receiver directly to her smartphone, and then the screen immediately appeared in the mobile phone player. This new product is really great, the reception is fast, the effect is HD, and even the sound is available. Su Wan raised her eyebrows and raised the volume of the mobile phone, and Jiangyu's slightly gasping voice immediately came from it. No, you can't do this, you quickly let me go. In the picture, Jiangyu has been pressed against the corner of the living room by Wen Wenhao. From the perspective of the camera, both of them were still wearing masks at this time, and the priest robe on Jiangyu's body had been scattered on the ground. Because the camera was in Jiangyu's hair, Jiangyu's figure couldn't be seen at all, but her slender arms could be clearly seen when she struggled. At this time, Jiangyu had torn off the mask on Wen Wenhao's face because of her intense struggle. In an instant, Jiangyu immediately froze there. Wen, teacher Wen. Her voice was trembling. Jiangyu. Wen Wenhao narrowed his eyes and slowly approached Jiangyu's face. I've liked you for a long time. As one of the many pursuers of the female lead in this world, Wen Wenhao is undoubtedly the most special one. This handsome guy with a gentle appearance is actually very keen on a certain kind of bed sport. The so-called beast in human clothing is precisely the color red and purple. When Wen Wenhao first entered Fengheng, he actually took a fancy to Jiangyu at a glance. Later, he found out that Jiangyu knew martial arts, and her body's flexibility was also very good, which aroused Wen Wenhao's heart to conquer. He approached quietly, wanting to make Jiangyu fall in love with him unknowingly, but today, a man and a woman were alone. Especially when he saw the tempting beauty in front of him, Wen Wenhao's heart was already like a monkey and he couldn't control it. In the face of Wen Wenhao's sudden confession, Jiangyu was stunned. While she was in a daze, Wen Wenhao had already held the back of Jiangyu's head with one hand and kissed her lips fiercely. His skillful skills immediately defeated Jiangyu, who knew nothing about love affairs. The battle between the two quickly escalated. Seeing that Wen Wenhao began to undress, Su Rui on the side couldn't stand it anymore. He snatched the mobile phone in Su Wan's hand and stared at her with a heavy gaze. Wife, you are not allowed to look at him, you can only look at me. Su Wan held back her laughter and nodded with a serious face. I'll just look at you, okay? Don't turn off your mobile phone, help me copy this wonderful video, and give it to Jiangyu later, so that she can keep it as a memento. Keep it as a memento or something. Su Rui's eyes flashed, and he couldn't help but smile at Su Wan. His wife knew him best in this world. She even guessed that he was planning to castrate Wen Wenhao. Chapter 150. After the carnival night, Fengheng took 3 days off as usual. Su Wan returned to the Su house with Su Rui at noon the next day. When she entered the door, she saw Su Haicheng, who was rarely free, accompanying Wen Shu to eat. Wen Shu's complexion was much better, but Su Rui had already told her that even if the remaining poison in her body was expelled, according to her current physical condition, she only had 2 years of life left at most. Wen Shu, who knew that she would not live long, did not seem particularly depressed. Now she cherished her time with her loved ones more. Xiao Wen, Xiao Qi, you're back. Come over to eat. Wen Shu smiled and waved to the two people. Su Wan also smiled at her. Mom, Xiao Qi and I have eaten outside. You guys eat slowly. Right. Su Wan looked at the empty seats in the dining room. Has Jiang Yu not come back yet? It's rare that you still care about your sister. Su Haicheng slowly put down his chopsticks and glanced at Su Wan. Yesterday, your class teacher called and said that she would take Xiao Yu to participate in an academic activity these days. Xiao Wan, you really should learn more from your sister. Of course, Mom and Dad don't expect you to be in the top 3, as long as you don't always wander in the bottom. Su Wan. Although the original owner's appearance was a schoolbelle, her grades could only be a joke. In contrast, Jiang Yu, who transferred to another school and worked hard, got the first place in the class in the final exam of last semester. Therefore, it was obvious that the Su family's husband and wife did not have any doubts about Wen Qianshou's lies. They were really relieved to hand over their daughter to him. Got it. I will also work hard to get into the top 3 this semester. Leaving this sentence, Su Wan pulled Su Rui upstairs quickly. In fact, it was not a delusion for her to get the first place in the whole year, but Su Wan didn't want to cause unnecessary trouble. After the new year, the person she had been waiting for should appear, Jing Lai, the leader of the Inferno gang in D City. In the original plot, Jing Lai was saved by Jiang Yu, and the two were also very passionate. Compared with Wen Wenhao's sentimentality, Jing Lai was much more infatuated, and it was precisely this infatuated boss who was particularly crazy and cool. As long as it was someone who was not good to Jiang Yu, he would clean them up. The original owner, Jiang Yu, was just one of the cannon fodder that Jing Lai had cleaned up. It was rare for Su Rui to rest for a day. Naturally, he accompanied his wife. The next day, when Su Rui went to work with a refreshed face, he saw Jiang Yu waiting for a long time at the door of his company. Big brother Xiao. Catching a glimpse of Su Rui's figure, Jiang Yu immediately stood up and called him. Before she said anything, her eyes were red. Jiang Yu felt that she was living in a dream these 2 days. First, she broke up with Luo Yu, and then with teacher Wen, she ran out of Wen Wenhao's house and wandered on strange streets. Jiang Yu suddenly began to miss the small county town in her hometown and her childhood playmate. She subconsciously wanted to call Xiao Qi, but unfortunately, her number had already been blacklisted by Su Rui. Fortunately, Jiang Yu still had Xiao Yuni's number. She called directly to the set. Xiao Yuni, who was filming, had actually been in contact with his brother. He was a very simple person. Seeing that Jiang Yu wanted his brother's work address, he sent the address to Jiang Yu's mobile phone without thinking. As a result, Su Rui was met by Jiang Yu. Su Rui felt a headache when he saw Jiang Yu. This female lead Darren couldn't be killed. Even if he beat her, he would feel that he was degrading himself. It was endless to be entangled by her. In the past, when General Su first came into contact with TV and computers, he felt that the female protagonists in those melodramatic TV dramas were as tenacious as cockroaches. After meeting Jiang Yu, General Su finally understood that there was always someone better than you. Big brother Xiao. Seeing that Su Rui ignored her, Jiang Yu called out again in a low voice, and tears were already swirling in her eyes. Without Luo Yu's careful care, the first person Jiang Yu thought of when something happened was Xiao Qi. Those memories of her youth are now like her life-saving straw. She even feels that even if the whole world abandons her, big brother Xiao will not. In fact, Xiao Qi is indeed the most affectionate supporting actor in the world. He has been silently guarding Jiang Yu for many years. Unfortunately, Jiang Yu does not understand this kind of feeling, and does not know how to cherish this man. After she entered Fengheng, she was gradually attracted by Luo Yu's strength. After being with Luo Yu, Jiang Yu began to entangle with Luo Yu's best friend, Wen Wenhao, because of her rotten kindness. Later, she was eaten up by Wen Wenhao. In fact, what is the so-called love? The young and soft-hearted Jiang Yu has a strong martial force, but when it comes to love, she has always been indecisive and wavering. In the face of all kinds of men's advances, she will not refuse. She thinks that she doesn't want to hurt others, but in fact, she just keeps releasing ambiguous signals to others that they can continue. A woman's indecisiveness is equivalent to a man's womanizing. In the original world, Luo Yu was Jiang Yu's first man, and he was also responsible for her. Luo Yu had always been with Jiang Yu until he discovered the unclear relationship between Jiang Yu and Wen Wenhao. At that time, Luo Yu loved Jiang Yu deeply. Although he also wanted to break up, later, true love overcame everything. This kind of feeling, because I love you, even if you love me, you still love others, I don't mind. Please forgive General Su for his inability to understand I love you, and you happen to love me. We love each other deeply and regard each other as the only one. Su Rui felt that if there is a definition of true love, it should probably be like this. So for those who can NPC with other men because of true love, and because of true love, they accept that their man has countless women, these people in Su Rui's view belong to the group of people who are seriously retarded and have long given up treatment. And at this moment, Su Rui was standing in front of such a person. Didn't you go out with teacher when? Su Rui saw Jiang Yu was about to cry at any time, and couldn't help but look at her knowingly. You came back by yourself? Why didn't you go home? Big brother Xiao. As soon as she heard Su Rui mention Wen Wenhao, Jiang Yu's face immediately changed. The scenes of last night were still very clear in her mind. She really didn't want to, but she still had sex with Wen Wenhao after half a push. Now, Jiang Yu doesn't know how to talk to Xiao Qi about this matter. It's too difficult to talk about it, but she felt so uncomfortable in her heart. She missed big brother Xiao's broad shoulders and warm embrace. Yes, when Wen Wenhao carried her off the dance floor last night, she leaned into that embrace. In fact, she had been thinking about Xiao Qi in her heart. She felt that the embrace was as warm as Xiao Qi's embrace. Every time she was in the most difficult situation, when she needed someone to help her the most, Xiao Qi would appear. Unfortunately, that was only in the past. In the original plot world, Jiang Yu, who had always been sheltered by Luo Yu, used her whole life to love so many men, but after all, she never found Xiao Qi good. Now, Jiang Yu, who had suffered continuous setbacks, suddenly realized that her feelings for Xiao Qi had long been different. If this is a rebirth script, then the female lead will definitely be reborn immediately, and then return to her youth to reunite with her childhood sweetheart. Chapter 151. At work time, the number of employees in and out of the company began to increase. In order to prevent Jiang Yu from accidentally injuring others, Su Rui finally brought her to his office. Although this online game studio is not well known now, Su Rui has already contacted several multinational consortiums. Now he is only waiting for the game to be tested and officially launched at the International Online Games Summit after the new year. Sit down. Su Rui entered his office and habitually took off his suit and put it on his boss chair. When he turned around, he carelessly loosened the tie around his neck. Jiang Yu has been paying attention to Su Rui's movements. She glimpsed the red dark mark half-covered on his neckline. Jiang Yu hurriedly lowered her eyes, but she still couldn't help but think of the scene of Su Rui kissing Su Wen in the corridor on the second floor that day. For a moment, Jiang Yu's heart was a little sour. What's the matter? At this time, Su Rui was already sitting lazily in his chair. He lazily raised his eyelids and looked at Jiang Yu indifferently. Brother Xiao, Jiang Yu took a deep breath and wanted to tell him everything in one go, but the words seemed to have left her mouth. Brother Xiao, do you know about Su Wen and Luo Yu? Su Rui raised his eyebrows. Why is this dialogue so familiar? By the way, it seems that the female lead in a certain world said this to him. Su Rui frowned and thought for a long time, and finally remembered that the female lead in a certain online game world said similar words to him. Birds of a feather flock together. It seems that there are a lot of commonalities between some female leads. Su Wan and Luo Yu used to be a couple. Jiang Yu sat on the sofa and said slowly, later, Luo Yu and Su Wan broke up and began to pursue me. I really refused him at that time, but Su Wan always misunderstood me and thought that I stole his love, so you mean she was with me to retaliate against you? Su Rui leaned sideways, supporting the table with one hand, and meaningfully completed the half of Jiang Yu's sentence that she did not finish. You know? Jiang Yu heard Su Rui's words, but suddenly raised her eyes and looked at him blankly. No, my ass. Jiang Yu, are you still asleep? Su Rui pointed at her eyes. Which eye of yours saw that Su Wan was with me to take revenge on you? Even if she really wants to retaliate against you, she should try her best to take Luo Yu away from you. Why is she looking for me? I don't like you. Could it be that you like me? I don't, I'm not. Jiang Yu's stuttering face immediately turned red. She didn't realize her feelings for Xiao Qi before. Jiang Yu could face such words calmly, but now, when Jiang Yu was in a daze, Su Rui had already stood up and walked slowly to the sofa where Jiang Yu was sitting. Could it be that you really like me? Su Rui suddenly bent down, his hands supporting the back of the sofa, and his whole body almost stuck to Jiang Yu. Jiang Yu returned to her senses and looked at the man close at hand. She felt that she was surrounded by his breath. Jiang Yu's heart suddenly skipped a beat. At this moment, not only her face, but even her entire neck was red. Watching Su Rui's face getting closer, Jiang Yu's eyelashes trembled and she unconsciously closed her eyes. A cold laughter suddenly sounded in Jiang Yu's ears. You're so cheap, does Wen Hao know? Jiang Yu opened her eyes abruptly and met Su Rui's dark and indifferent eyes. You, Jiang Yu looked at Su Rui incredulously. Why does he know, Jiang Yu? I feel sick when I look at you, do you know that? Su Rui shook his head in disgust, and skillfully took out the brocade handkerchief he carried with him and wiped his hands. It was really distressing. He was so close just now, and now he felt uncomfortable all over his body. When Su Rui was distressed, Jiang Yu on the sofa was pale. Disgusting. Jiang Yu's tears finally burst out. Her big brother Xiao said she was disgusting. But what did she do wrong? Su Wan robbed her of her identity. Did she even care about a single cent? She gave in to her sister in every aspect and greeted her with a smile every day, but she refused to let her go. Now, Su Wan even robbed her big brother Xiao. Big brother Xiao, what's so good about Su Wan? She can satisfy you. I can too. Jiang Yu stood up in a trance and wanted to grab Su Rui's sleeves, but Su Rui shook her off. Get lost. The huge push made Jiang Yu stumble and fall to the ground. Her forehead hit the corner of the sofa, and blood flowed from her forehead, dyeing Jiang Yu's sight red. It hurts. Her body hurts, and her heart hurts. She can no longer find the big brother Xiao who cared for her so much. The man in front of her looked at her with only indifference and disgust. Xiao Qi, Jiang Yu called his name heartbreakingly, but the man in front of her didn't seem to see her wound or her blood. He just walked to the desk indifferently and pressed the company's internal line, call 2 security guards up. Immediately, looking at Jiang Yu for one more second, Su Rui felt that he couldn't help but chop her up and feed her to the dog. When the company's security guards walked into the office, they saw the woman sitting on the ground with blood and tears on her face. What's going on? Take this crazy woman away. Don't let her near our company in the future. Hearing Su Rui's cold command, the 2 security guards at the door immediately obediently stepped forward and pulled Jiang Yu up from the ground. At this time, Jiang Yu seemed to have lost her soul. She let the 2 people help her out of Su Rui's company. She leaned against the corner powerlessly and looked at the company's door plate in a trance. Su Cheng Wu. This was the name of Su Rui's studio. Su Cheng Wu. Su Wan. Su Wan. He. Jiang Yu's eyes gradually became cold. She felt that she was too weak and kind to let Su Wan be so insatiable. She must fight back. She wanted everyone to see how vicious Su Wan was. Chapter 152. Jiang Yu returned to the Su house on the last night of the holiday. When she returned home, Jiang Yu still looked the same as before. When she saw Su Wan, she would still take the initiative to greet her with a smile, but Su Wan was used to ignoring her. At the dinner table, when Shu's face was not very good. Su Haicheng gave her food with a worried face, but when Shu's eyes were constantly looking at Jiang Yu's body. After dinner, when Shu called Jiang Yu to her room alone, and soon there was a quarrel between the mother and daughter in the room. Su Haicheng had been reading the newspaper downstairs. When he heard the faint quarrel coming from upstairs, he frowned and immediately put down the newspaper and turned to go upstairs. Su Wan and Su Rui were lazily sitting on the sofa at this time. Today, there was Su Wan's favorite reality show, and the two were concentrating on watching it. As for the matter between Jiang Yu and Wen Shu, Su Wan felt that it was better not to intervene. And Su Rui, who was leaning on Su Wan, didn't care about it at all. When Su Haicheng arrived on the second floor, before he could open the door, he heard Jiang Yu's excited voice coming from the room. "Why are you prejudiced against me? I am your biological daughter. You are always on Su Wan's side. You have never regarded me as your daughter. Since you don't want me, I will not continue to stay here." Jiang Yu in the room seemed to be a little too excited. Su Haicheng could only hear her voice. When he was about to open the door was forcefully pulled open from the inside. Jiang Yu's eyes were red, and she seemed to be stunned when she saw Su Haicheng in front of her. The next second, she bit her lip and quickly ran past Su Haicheng. Wen Shu, Xiaoyu, she, Su Haicheng's words were halfway through. When his eyes fell on Wen Shu's body, he saw her pale face and trembling body. Su Haicheng immediately panicked. He quickly came to the bedside and held Wen Shu's crumbling body with both hands. "Wen Shu, don't scare me. I'm fine, Brother Cheng, I'm sorry. Wen Shu's eyes eagerly looked at Su Haicheng's face, and her eyes were full of guilt. If it weren't for her body being too weak, her and Brother Cheng's child would not have been taken away, and Jiang Yu would not have grown up like this. Wen Shu, who was born in a scholarly family, was actually a very traditional woman. The century-old Wen family had very strict family rules. Although the Wen family would not give girls some virginity, they had a set of methods that could be passed down for many years to verify whether a girl was still a virgin. On that day, Su Rui wanted to stay in the Su family and live with Wen Shu. Su Haicheng disagreed at first, but Wen Shu gently agreed to Su Rui's request. This was not because Su Rui saved her, but because she was grateful. On one hand, Wen Shu felt that Su Rui was very reliable. The main reason was that Wen Shu realized that although Su Rui and Su Wan had been living together, the two people actually did not have a substantial relationship. After all, Su Wan was only 17 years old. She was in her youth and Su Rui was also full of vigor. Although the two were a little intimate, they always guarded each other's line of defense. That was the respect for love. Wen Shu understood very well that a man will treat you like this if he really loves you and cherishes you. Therefore, she recognized this son-in-law. Wen Shu always knew that she would die soon. It turned out that she was most worried about Su Wan. She was afraid that her daughter, who was spoiled since childhood, would have a big temper and a strong personality. She would eventually encounter trouble in the future. Fortunately, there was a person who was worth entrusting to take care of her. Wen Shu felt that even if she left, she would not have any regrets. Unexpectedly, Jiang Yu, who had always been the most obedient and sensible in her eyes, would have such a thing happen. Wen Shu wanted to talk to Jiang Yu. She felt that she had not fulfilled her responsibilities as a mother. She spoiled Su Wan too much that she developed a big messy temper. Now, she wanted to talk to Jiang Yu. She didn't want her daughter, who she had finally found, to be cheated by a man outside. But what Wen Shu didn't expect was that she had just asked about the man, and Jiang Yu started to quarrel with her excitedly. "Why can Su Wan and I can't?" It turned out that Jiang Yu had always minded. She minded the existence of Su Wan, minded the person who took away her biological parents and her identity. Human nature is like this. When Su Wan was grumpily jealous and kept away from everyone with all irrational behavior, Jiang Yu stood at a high place and tried to save her with a compassionate attitude. People will involuntarily sympathize with the weak. Yes, no matter what Su Wan does, when she is abandoned by her lover and even hated by her relatives, she has become a failed weak person. For such a Su Wan, Jiang Yu can help her without scruples, and even accept her unreasonable behavior again and again. This will only show Jiang Yu's tolerance and magnanimity. But when everything changed direction, when Su Wan had her own love, when she had a man who regarded her as a treasure, when she could openly smile in front of everyone and say that she was just a country bumpkin, when no one looked down on her, she could still continue to live happily and confidently. At the same time, Jiang Yu lost the people who loved her and the people she loved again and again. At this time, She could no longer smile and wish Su Wen well. She was jealous of everything Su Wen had. All of that, she felt that it should be her own. There is a Pandora's box in everyone's heart. Once opened, it will release the devil hidden in your heart. In the end, Jiang Yu stubbornly packed her luggage and left the Su family. In the cold night of D City, the sky was filled with snowflakes. Jiang Yu stood outside the Su family's villa and looked at the bright lights inside. She subconsciously grasped the mobile phone in her hand, and finally, she gritted her teeth and dialed the phone number. Teacher Wen, this is Jiang Yu. Jiang Yu's departure also set off a lot of waves in the Su family. Su Wan also ran away from home before, but Su Haicheng had long understood her temper. He knew that the eldest miss couldn't stand the hardships. She would come back after a few days, but Jiang Yu was different. She was very independent and very stubborn. When she left, Wen Shu intended to stop her, but her body was too weak. Su Haicheng knew about Jiang Yu's matter, and he was still angry with his daughter. Seeing that his wife was so angry that she almost fainted, Su Haicheng simply stopped Wen Shu and did not let her chase after her. After such a thing, Jiang Yu should have grown up. People will experience a lot of setbacks in their lives. Su Haicheng has personally experienced a lot of storms and waves, and he also watched Su Wen go through setbacks again and again, changing from a bad-tempered eldest miss to such an obedient and sensible appearance. Perhaps, it would be a good thing for Jiang Yu to suffer some setbacks outside. Outside the window, snowflakes fluttered. Su Wen stood in front of the window, and Su Rui behind her gently hugged her. The two watched through the transparent window as Wenhao drove a black car to pick up Jiang Yu. For a man, what is too easy to get will never be cherished. Su Wan whispered. In fact, Wenhao's identity was not low, and he was also a real playboy. In the original world, he was so obsessed with Jiang Yu. One reason was that the female lead was too attractive, and the other reason was that Jiang Yu was Luo Yu's woman. Conquering a woman who belongs to another powerful man in bed is a very fulfilling thing for Wenhao. Just because you are XX's woman, I want to conquer you. Alright, this was no longer a novelty. And as the male lead of a world, Luo Yu's way of attracting hatred is really numbing. But now, Luo Yu has broken up with Jiang Yu, and Su Wen estimates that Wenhao may not be as obsessed with Jiang Yu as in the original plot. Looks will eventually grow old, and the body will gradually decay. Two people who truly love each other, in fact, have always been in love with each other's souls. General Su looked at his wife tenderly and was about to ask for praise when he saw Su Wen curling her lips and seriously replied, "You are right, you will only love my soul in the future." Su Rui. Wife, this script is wrong. Chapter 153. After Christmas, it was New Year's Day, and then it was the most important day of Fengheng's semester, the final exam. This time's exam was not difficult for Su Wan, so she easily got into the top 3 of the class and successfully staged a last-place counterattack in front of everyone. This made the whole class's little friends dumbfounded. The homeroom teacher, Wenhao, even specially looked for Su Wan to talk to him in his office. Su Wan really didn't have a good impression of this beast in human clothing, so she just hurriedly responded with a few words and escaped from the office. As soon as she went out, Su Wan saw Luo Yu waiting against the wall on the side of the corridor. "Are you okay?" Luo Yu looked at Su Wan with some worry. "What can happen to me?" Su Wan met Luo Yu's gaze and asked with some surprise. "Nothing." Luo Yu turned his gaze. At the ball that day, others didn't know who Wenhao left with, but Luo Yu knew. He recognized it was Jiang Yu at a glance, and then Jiang Yu moved out of the Su family and lived with Wenhao. Although it was very secretive, in D City, there was no secret at all for Luo family. Luo Yu was surprised that Jiang Yu chose to be with Wenhao, and he also felt discouraged. Now Jiang Yu no longer had the feeling that could make Luo Yu's heart move, and recently, Jiang Yu and Ouyang Luo were very close, which made Luo Yu a little concerned. He didn't know what Jiang Yu was thinking. Today, he accidentally saw Wenhao enter the office with Su Wan, and Luo Yu followed them. He always felt that Wenhao had bad intentions. "It's all school, I should go." Seeing that Luo Yu was stunned there and didn't speak, Su Wn couldn't help but say while leaving. I'll send you. Uncle Liu will pick me up. Since Jiang Yu left the Su family, Uncle Liu has become Su Wan's full-time driver. My car is downstairs, I'll take you to the school gate. Luo Yu smiled, and his face was so sincere that people couldn't bear to refuse. Okay. Su Wn nodded, this ex-boyfriend, now it seems that he is not so annoying. The two people talked in a low voice as they walked, completely unaware that a slender figure had been following them, quietly holding a mobile phone and constantly taking photos. Didi. As soon as Su Wn got into Luo Yu's car, she received a message on her mobile phone. Seeing the content, Su Wan's face turned cold and her eyes swept over the rearview mirror of the car. What's wrong? Feeling that Su Wan's expression had changed, Luo Yu couldn't help but look at her and ask. It's nothing. Su Wn smiled and looked down at her mobile phone. Looking at it, she suddenly turned to look at Luo Yu's face and said with a chuckle, Luo Yu, I saw you in the auditorium on the night of the carnival, but you seemed to be holding a girl at the time. I didn't dare to disturb you. Ball, girl, Luo Yu's hand holding the steering wheel tightened slightly. You saw it, that, suddenly, Luo Yu didn't know what to say. The girl in the mask gave him a particularly familiar feeling, but he just couldn't guess who she was. That day, she just accidentally fell into his arms. The two people only said one sentence, and when they separated, the girl suddenly turned around and hugged him and kissed his lips. This was the first time Luo Yu had been kissed by someone, but the girl's kiss was particularly gentle, with a deep affection kiss, which made Luo Yu's heart soften. Unfortunately, she quickly disappeared into the crowd. Later, Luo Yu looked all over the venue and never saw the familiar figure again. Who is she? Is it Cinderella? I don't know that girl, but I think she is very familiar. Luo Yu smiled with some loss. She is like Cinderella in the fairy tale. When the magic disappeared, her whole person disappeared from the ball, and I can no longer find her figure. She is not Cinderella, she is Cinderella's sister. Creak. Hearing Su Wan's words, Luo Yu slammed on the brakes. Do you know who she is? Oh. Su Wn blinked a little slyly. Maybe it's me? Ah. Luo Yu's eyes flashed. Don't joke, it's not you, I know. The feeling she gives me. Anyway, it's not you. Well, it's not me, but I really know who she is. If you want to see her, I can help. Really? Facing Su Wan's smiling face, Luo Yu's expression looked particularly excited. Su Wn, are you really willing to help me? It depends on your performance. Su Wn subconsciously glanced at the rearview mirror again. Drive quickly. What are you in a hurry for? Good food is not afraid of late. Top student Luo. After breaking up with Luo Yu, Su Wan did not go directly back to Su's house. She told Uncle Liu to drive the car to a coffee shop not far from the school. She found a quiet seat and directly opened her mobile phone to send a message. Not long after, a familiar figure walked into the coffee shop. Seeing Su Wan's figure, the person quickly walked to her table and slowly sat opposite Su Wan. You're here. Su Wn looked at Shu Nuo, who was a little out of breath, and couldn't help but curve her lips. I ordered a cup of Blue Mountain for you. Luo Yu likes it, you should like it too, right? Shu Nuo's face was embarrassed. Although there were thick glasses covering it, Su Wn still saw the embarrassment in Shu Nuo's eyes. Today's matter. Su Wn thought about it and was about to change the topic. Shu Nuo on the side immediately waved her hands nervously. I didn't follow you, I really didn't follow you. Oh. Su Wn looked at Shu Nuo's nervous face and couldn't help but think of the day when she entered the mission. The first person she saw was also Shu Nuo. Her sense of existence in the class was very low, but in fact, Shu Nuo was a very beautiful girl. She was just not good at dressing up and not good at expressing herself. The text message that Su Wan just received in Luo Yu's car was sent to her by Shu Nuo, and the content of the text message was about Jiang Yu. During this period, Jiang Yu has been quiet a lot. Seeing that after the exam, it will be a holiday for the new year. Su Wan didn't care too much about Jiang Yu's existence. She didn't expect that she had been deliberately thinking about exposing herself. Being a female lead like this is really hard. I know you accidentally found out that Jiang Yu was following me. Shu Nuo, thank you. Su Wan's words made Shu Nuo, who had been nervous, finally feel at ease. After impulsively kissing Luo Yu at the dance that day, Shu Nuo was dumbfounded. Okay? She felt that she had no face to see people, but fortunately, no one knew that she did it. Therefore, Shu Nuo decided to play dead to the end. She couldn't let Luo Yu find out that she was the guy who did the bad thing. So during this time, Shu Nuo had been avoiding Luo Yu, and when she saw Luo Yu and Su Wn together after school today, she reflexively hid to the side. As a result, Shu Nuo accidentally discovered that Jiang Yu was secretly following behind the two people. Shu Nuo felt that Jiang Yu's eyes staring at the two people were a little scary. She thought about it and finally sent a message to Su Wan. I think Jiang Yu has become very strange recently. Shu Nuo deliberated for a moment and looked up at Su Wan seriously. Su Wan, you have to be careful. She is so skilled, in case she wants to harm you. Don't worry, I have a sense of propriety. In fact, Su Wan also understood Jiang Yu's thoughts a little bit. She deliberately followed her and Luo Yu, in order to grasp the evidence of her cheating, and then show it to Brother Xiao. Since she is so thoughtful, she will definitely fulfill her wish. The winter vacation began, and Su Wan was finally liberated. At this time, the International Online Games Summit was about to be held in M Country. Su Rui wanted to take Su Wan to participate, but Su Wan let Su Rui leave with the team alone. After sending Su Rui away at the airport, Su Wan immediately made an appointment with Luo Yu to meet at a Western restaurant in the city center. If you want to know who the girl at the dance is, then you have to do me a favor. Su Wan went straight to the point and put forward her conditions to Luo Yu. Hearing her words, Luo Yu's eyes condensed. Why do I feel like I've boarded a pirate ship? What do you want me to do for you? Do you know the Whisper Club under the name of the Ouyang family? Whisper Club, a very high-end private club in the suburbs of D City. It is the property of Ouyang Luo's father. It is the most famous and luxurious place to spend money in D City. I know Whisper. Are you and Xiao Qi interested in that place? At first, Luo Yu was a little concerned about Su Wan and Xiao Qi being together. At that time, he also suspected that Su Wan had contact with Xiao Qi before breaking up with him, but later Luo Yu sent someone to investigate and found out that Xiao Qi really came to D City for the first time. That day at the school gate, he did meet Su Wan for the first time, and the person who had a deep relationship with Xiao Qi before that was Jiang Yu. A lot of things have happened recently, and Luo Yu's state of mind is slowly growing. The Luo family has always been well informed, and now Luo Yu has long known that Xiao Qi is not the same as before. The poor boy that day is now the hottest genius star in the country. Just whisper how to say it. As long as you have money and power, you can book your own private room in Whisper. In that private room, you can choose to do whatever you want with your lover unscrupulously. Uniforms, whips, handcuffs, candles, everything is there. Of course, if you are alone, you can also spend money to enjoy the stars, services specially provided by Whisper. In a private place, take off the disguise, and have an unscrupulous sex. Safe, exciting, and will never be discovered by others. Luxurious rooms, complete props, and absolute security and confidentiality, this is the most attractive part of Whisper. Hearing Su Wan ask about Whisper, Luo Yu's first thought was, full and warm thoughts. Are Xiao Qi and Su Wan going to Whisper to indulge? As a result, when she heard Luo Yu's rhetorical question, Su Wan just smiled mysteriously. It's not Xiao Qi who is going to Whisper, it's you. Luo Yu. Chapter 154. Whisper Club. This high-class clubhouse, which was famous far and wide in D City, was located next to a beautiful forest park in the suburbs. Jiang Yu came to the door of Whisper Club and looked at the door of the club that seemed very low-key in the cold night. She hesitated, and finally got out of the car quickly, then took out the VIP card that Ouyang Luo gave her and directly entered the door unimpeded. As soon as you enter the door, the splendor in front of you will make you feel like you have come to another world. In the resplendent and luxurious hall, countless beautiful women in bikinis smiled and passed by with high-grade red wine. They were just the most ordinary waiters in Whisper Club, but each of them had a body comparable to that of a famous model. Jiang Yu was naturally a little reserved when she saw this scene for the first time. She immediately called Ouyang Luo. Not long after, young Master Ouyang, who was dressed extremely showily, personally went downstairs and pulled Jiang Yu to the 4th floor of the club. In Whisper Club, from the 3rd floor onwards, it was a private room belonging to VIP guests. Ouyang Luo took Jiang Yu into 4007. As soon as she entered the door, Jiang Yu's face changed. "Hello, sister-in-law." The spacious and elegant room was full of young people of 17 or 18 years old. Most of these people were Feng Heng's students and also young Master Ouyang's younger brother. When they saw Jiang Yu enter the door, everyone immediately shouted in unison, "Ouyang Luo, this." Jiang Yu didn't know in advance that Ouyang Luo would call so many people over. After all, peeping on others was not a noble thing. Jiang Yu also repeatedly convinced herself that it was for the good of Brother Xiao, so she would do this kind of thing. However, how could Ouyang Luo think so? Ever since he learned from Jiang Yu that Luo Yu was going to whisper to Su Wan about having an affair, Ouyang Luo was inexplicably excited. He finally caught the opportunity to embarrass Su Wan. Wouldn't it be a pity if he didn't call some of his friends to come and watch such a good opportunity? So after confirming that Luo Yu had settled on 4008, Ouyang Luo immediately ordered people to clean up 4007 and called his friends to come and watch the show together. "Xiao Yu, don't take their words to heart." Seeing that Jiang Yu seemed to be frightened by the word sister-in-law, Ouyang Luo immediately comforted her in a low voice. "Come, you sit here, I have already arranged this private room." Ouyang Luo picked up the remote control and turned on the giant LED display on the wall of the room. In every private room of Whisper, there would be a big screen like this. Under normal circumstances, this big screen would broadcast the scene in your own room at the same time. Well, the meaning of this could only be understood, but not expressed in words. However, in Ouyang Luo's room, when he turned on the big screen, it showed another empty private room. That's right, their screen was connected to 4008's video feed next door. Ouyang Luo had used his power as the young master to order someone to secretly transfer the feed. At this time, Jiang Yu's gaze also fell on the screen, and she involuntarily followed Ouyang Luo's footsteps to the big sofa in the middle of the room and sat down. At this time, there was no one in 4008. Jiang Yu looked at the time, and there were still 5 minutes to 8 p.m. She had been monitoring and tracking Su Wan during this time. Seeing that Brother Xiao went abroad, Su Wan couldn't wait to contact Luo Yu, which made Jiang Yu very angry. In order to grasp the evidence of Su Wan's infidelity as soon as possible, she directly spent money to find someone to install a bug on Su Wan's mobile phone. Because of this, she was able to eavesdrop on Luo Yu's call to meet Su Wan at Whisper 4008 at 8 p.m. tonight. At first, Jiang Yu didn't know where Whisper was. Later, she asked Ouyang Luo and learned that this place turned out to be a place for that kind of thing, which made Jiang Yu start to despise Su Wan. What a shameless woman, Brother Xiao just went abroad, and she couldn't wait to get together with her adulterer. This time, I must make her look good. Click. At 8 o'clock, Luo Yu's figure appeared on time in room 4008. Jiang Yu's eyes were fixed on Luo Yu on the screen, and the other people who were called by Ouyang Luo didn't know what kind of drama they were going to watch at first. Now that Luo Yu's figure appeared on the screen, everyone couldn't help but exclaim. Fortunately, the soundproofing effect of this room was very strong, so they didn't have to worry about being heard by Luo Yu. Former lovers, now meeting again through the video, Jiang Yu's mood was a little mixed. Perhaps Luo Yu was also deceived by Su Wan. As Jiang Yu was thinking, she saw that Luo Yu had taken off his coat and was sitting on the sofa in room 4008. There was also a big screen opposite his sofa. Luo Yu seemed to look at the big screen curiously, and then took out his mobile phone and started to make a call. "Su Wan, I'm here." "Where are you?" In room 4007, when they heard Luo Yu say Su Wan's name, all the teenagers in the room were excited. "Your mother. Are they going to watch top student Luo and school belle Su Pa? So excited. Well, if top student Luo finds out, will he be silenced? Who cares so much? Just when a group of people couldn't help but have their faces rippling with why, Luo Yu continued to make phone calls. Not knowing what Su Wan said on the phone, Luo Yu seemed to frown slightly. He held the phone in one hand and fumbled on the sofa with the other hand. After a while, he found a small remote control. I found it, do you want to turn it on? While speaking, Luo Yu pressed the on key of the remote control without thinking, and then a scene that made him stunned immediately appeared on the whole big screen. In the picture were two entangled bodies. Is it cool? The man panted heavily as he continued to exercise and spew obscenities. The woman beneath him could only pant and breathe comfortably. Her exquisite and beautiful face was filled with seductive charm. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. Yes, this is the HD version of when Qianshou and Jiang Yu's little angel's bed exercise. Luo Yu, what did I see? Please wash my eyes. When Luo Yu was stunned, room 4007 next door also watched this scene at close range. All the men. Is there a nosebleed? Ouyang Luo was also dumbfounded. He opened his mouth and stared dumbfoundedly at the kind and pure person in his mind who was like a slut under Wenhao's body, panting, and repeatedly. This is not true, not true. A certain teenager seemed to hear the sound of his glass heart being crushed into pieces. Don't look, don't look. Jiang Yu, who finally reacted, frantically grabbed the remote control in Ouyang Luo's hand, but the small remote control seemed to have suddenly failed. No matter how she pressed it, it couldn't be turned off. Jiang Yu excitedly ran to the screen and wanted to cover the scene inside with her body, but how could her slender body be covered? Moreover, seeing her chest moving up and down excitedly in front of the screen, most of the teenagers in the room subconsciously swallowed their saliva. Your mother. It's really the same as in the video, it looks so big. Get out. In the end, Ouyang Luo roared angrily, and everyone reluctantly left. At this time, only Ouyang Luo and Jiang Yu were left in the room, and the voice that made people blush and their heartbeat kept ringing in his ears. Jiang Yu. Ouyang Luo bent down and looked at Jiang Yu, who was squatting on the ground and crying weakly. Look at me. As soon as he raised his hand, he grabbed Jiang Yu's hair and did not force her to look at him. Tell me why did you betray me? Obviously, in the world of a certain Chinibya, since Jiang Yu and Luo Yu broke up, she has been very close to him. Jiang Yu did not refuse his advances, and even several times Ouyang Luo couldn't help hugging Jiang Yu and holding her little hand. Jiang Yu did not refuse these. Therefore, Ouyang Luo always thought that he was already Jiang Yu's little angel's boyfriend. But just now, in front of his own group of younger brothers, he was put on an upgraded version of the universe's invincible green hat. Ouyang Luo, you. Seeing Ouyang Luo's eyes gradually become cold and strange, Jiang Yu's heart panicked and couldn't help but struggle. Is Teacher Wen very brave? Can he satisfy you that I can't? Ouyang Luo saw Jiang Yu struggling in front of him, and he couldn't help but sink his face. He leaned down and was about to kiss Jiang Yu's face. At this time, Jiang Yu, who was panicking, finally played the advantage of her martial arts master. With a set of combined punches, she knocked Ouyang Luo to the ground. Oh, here. Ouyang Luo fell to the ground, raised his hand to wipe the blood from the corner of his lips, endured the pain in his body and chest, and looked at Jiang Yu coldly. Do you think I want to touch you? Why are you pretending to be a chaste woman in front of me? Wenhao is a frequent visitor of Whisper. The number of women he has slept with is not less than 1,000. Do you think I, Ouyang Luo, will care about his used shoes? Standing up shakily, Ouyang Luo gave Jiang Yu a somewhat hideous smile. In the future, don't let me see you again in Fengheng, otherwise. Ouyang Luo's words were not finished, but the meaning of his words was already very obvious. Bang! Fiercely kicking open the door of 4007, Ouyang Luo just saw Luo Yu, who just came out of 4008 when he went out. The two men looked at each other and saw Ouyang Luo's somewhat embarrassed appearance. Luo Yu lowered his eyes and turned away without saying a word. Needless to say, he probably guessed what happened to Ouyang Luo. Chapter 155. After Jiang Yu came out of the Whisper, she almost rushed back to the Su family to find Su Wan to settle accounts, but the servant of the Su family told her that Su Wan had already flown abroad. Jiang Yu, who finally realized that she had been schemed against by Su Wan from beginning to end, fell to the ground in a daze. She felt that she was finished, and her life was finished. Being seen by so many people about her and Wen Wenhao, and at the same time being warned and threatened by Ouyang Luo, she knew that she could not stay in Fengheng anymore. Even in the entire D city, she had become a joke. The next day, the video of Jiang Yu and Wen Wenhao had begun to circulate widely in the circle of D city, and even Su Haicheng got a copy. For this kind of immoral thing, as a father, he felt ashamed, and at the same time, he was naturally heartbroken. When Su Wen accompanied Su Rui to return triumphantly abroad, the matter of Jiang Yu and Wen Wenhao was still circulating in the upper-class circle of the entire D city. So what if she's a real daughter? She still did some shameful things. The so-called people's words are fearful. Jiang Yu, who came from a mountain village, saw the face of the so-called upper-class people for the first time. When they hold you up, you will sit on the clouds, but when they step on you, you will go deep into the mud and can't defend yourself at all. At this time, Jiang Yu understood the meaning of home. With Wen Shu accompanying her day and night, Jiang Yu's mood finally stabilized. And the return of Su Wan and Su Rui became the fuse of Jiang Yu's rampage. Su Wan, it's you. You did it all. Why do you want to harm me like this? How can you be so vicious? After many days, Jiang Yu's face was haggard and her eyes were in a trance. At the moment when she saw Su Wan enter the door, Jiang Yu's eyes suddenly flashed with coldness. She quickly rushed towards Su Wan and raised her hand to slap Su Wan. No one in the hall had time to stop Jiang Yu, but there was a person behind Su Wan who was faster than Jiang Yu. Pa! A loud slap hit Jiang Yu's face. She froze in place and stared at the man in front of her. Xiao, Jiang Yu, everything is your own fault. Su Rui interrupted Jiang Yu's words. He and Su Wan really didn't intend to release that video, but Jiang Yu has been following Su Wan relentlessly, and even installed a bug in her mobile phone, which has touched Su Wan's bottom line. As the saying goes, if you don't do it, you won't die, Jiang Yu will die. Jiang Yu didn't do it, didn't kill yourself. Su Wan took a step forward and looked at the wronged and stubborn Jiang Yu in front of her. Did I tell you to go to bed with Wen Wenhao? Did I force you and Ouyang Luo? Or did I force you to follow me and Luo Wan? Since you like to peep at other people's privacy so much, I'll let you have a good time this time. I'll let everyone in the city see how beautiful and alluring you are. You don't have to thank me. Who asked you to be my good sister? Wan, I, Wan, you, Su Yu, I, you, I, you, Wan, I, Wan, I, you, I, Wan, I. Su Wan, you. Jiang Yu was stimulated by Su Wan's words. She was so excited that she wanted to make a move again, but the corner of her eyes caught Su Rui's indifferent eyes. Jiang Yu's movements slowed down again. Brother Xiao, can you turn a blind eye to what she did? I followed her, but I was not as vicious as her to release other people's private videos. Oh. Hearing that Jiang Yu still felt that she was not wrong and everything was Su Wan's fault, General Su could only laugh. I have heard an old saying that only state officials are allowed to set fires, but ordinary people are not allowed to light lamps. Jiang Yu, since you can follow and eavesdrop on Su Wan, why can't Su Wan fight back? And the so-called video, if you didn't do it yourself, can she still wrongly accuse you? If you want, you can also release the video. Oh, yes. I almost forgot. My wife is not like some people who will casually go to bed with other men. If you want this video, you have to wait until we get married to disturb the bridal chamber. Of course, I will not give you this opportunity. With that, Su Rui impatiently raised his hand and pushed Jiang Yu aside. He turned his head and looked at Su Wan tenderly. Wife, ignore her. She is sick in the head. Are you tired after sitting on the plane for so long? I will help you prepare the bath water. Let's take a good bath. Under Jiang Yu's gaze that wanted to eat people, General Su still pulled his wife upstairs with a gentle face and went to warm her up. Looking at the backs of the two people leaving, Jiang Yu subconsciously gritted her teeth, and her pretty face was involuntarily distorted. Xiao Yu, your sister is at fault in this matter, but you are also. Hey. Such a big thing happened in the family, your mother and I are also responsible. Su Haicheng, who had been silent, couldn't bear to see his good family break up like this. He couldn't help but whisper a few words of comfort. Hearing his words, Jiang Yu just sneered in her heart, Su family. When Su Wan didn't come back, she still felt that her parents were her safe haven, but now Su Wan is back, and the culprit who harmed her is in front of her, but Su Haicheng and his wife are indifferent to Su Wan's crime. This kind of parents was really disappointing. I'm tired, I'll go upstairs first. Jiang Yu loosened her clenched fists, turned and slowly walked upstairs. After returning to her room, Jiang Yu's eyes flashed with madness. She took out her mobile phone and quickly dialed Wen Wenhao's number. What's the matter? Since that incident was exposed, Wen Wenhao's life in Fengheng has not been easy. Who let Fengheng be the territory of the Ouyang family? Although the Wen family is also a big family, the Wen family is not a local family. Distant water cannot quench immediate thirst. Fortunately, Wen Wenhao is very good at conducting himself and doing things. During this period, he has no longer contacted Jiang Yu, and also personally went to the Ouyang family to visit Ouyang Luo's grandfather. There was no conflict of interest between the two sides. It was just some trivial matters of love affairs. Wen Wenhao's tone was very cold when he suddenly received a call from Jiang Yu today. He has had countless women over the years. Although Jiang Yu is one of the best, and her flexible body does make him exceptionally obsessed, she has now successfully offended the two largest local families, the Ouyang family and the Luo family. Under such circumstances, as long as Wen Wenhao still has a little bit of IQ, he should completely draw a line with Jiang Yu. On the other end of the phone, Jiang Yu also felt Wen Wenhao's indifference, but she didn't care anymore. She didn't really like Wen Wenhao. I have something I want to ask you for help with. I'm afraid I can't help you. Wen Wenhao refused very simply, and he didn't even want to know what Jiang Yu wanted him to do for her. What do you think of Su Wan's figure? Jiang Yu suddenly tempted in a low voice on the phone. My sister is liked by a lot of people. Su Wan? Wen Wenhao did not hang up the phone immediately, and Su Wan's beautiful but excessively indifferent face immediately appeared in his mind. Those who can be selected as the school flower are naturally beautiful and aloof. For such a beauty, Wen Wenhao generally has no resistance. If you like it, I will help you arrange it. Jiang Yu's tone was very low and very firm. Why? Wen Wenhao, who was already somewhat moved, couldn't help but ask, just because of the video, are you going to retaliate against her? She did it first, I will do it back. She wants to ruin my reputation, I will also ruin her reputation. Feeling the fierceness in Jiang Yu's tone, Wen Wenhao suddenly shivered. Sure enough, a woman's heart is the most poisonous. The most dangerous thing in this world is a woman. However, in front of a beauty, the opportunity to kiss the school flower is in front of him. How can Wen Wenhao let it go? Well, for the sake of our past relationship, I will help you get revenge. Chapter 156. The Spring Festival was supposed to be a day of family reunion and joy, but the Su family had such a big incident. Even during the Spring Festival, there was not much joy in the villa. Jiang Yu, who had been locked in the room, suddenly cried and apologized to Wen Shu when the New Year's bell rang at midnight, and then said with tears that she must let go of the past and start a new life in the future. At the same time, she also hoped that she and her younger sister could abandon their past grievances and be a pair of loving sisters. If it was the former Jiang Yu, Su Wan would reluctantly believe that her words were somewhat sincere. As for now, Hehe, who would believe that she wanted to bury the hatchet with herself? However, looking at the female lead's hard-working performance, and her eyes were swollen from crying, Su Wan could only reluctantly pretend that she didn't notice her full of malice. After the Spring Festival, school would start soon. Su Wan had nothing to prepare, and because Lingshan was already preparing to be fully launched, Su Wan's pace of life had become very fast. Because he often had to work overtime, Su Wan's figure was rarely seen in the Su family. In the blink of an eye, it was the Lantern Festival. Jiang Yu took the initiative to ask Su Wan out for the first time after the new year. Xiao Wan, tonight, Chaos in the Imperial Capital will premiere at 10 o'clock. Brother Xiao is not here. Let's go to the premiere together. Chaos in the Imperial Capital is the movie in which Xiao Yuni participated. The so-called fate, some can be changed, but some seem to be destined. Without Su Wan's reminder and obstruction, Xiao Yuni finally participated in the movie, and like the original plot that Su Wan knew, he played the third male lead, the sixth prince. Su Wan was actually very interested in this movie. Seeing Jiang Yu looking at herself expectantly, Su Wan couldn't help but smile meaningfully. Okay, I was going to support Yuni today. Seeing that Su Wan agreed so easily, Jiang Yu's eyes flashed with joy. Okay, then let's do it. After leaving Su Wan's room, Jiang Yu proudly raised her lips and sent a message to Wen Wenhao again. At 10 o'clock tonight, wait for my news. At 6 o'clock in the evening, after dinner, Jiang Yu dressed herself up and sat on the sofa, staring absent-mindedly at the European-style clock on the wall. Thinking that she could immediately ruin Su Wan's reputation, Jiang Yu felt that all the cells in her body were boiling. Unfortunately, at this time, she felt that time was passing too slowly. DIDI. A text message suddenly popped up on Jiang Yu's mobile phone page. At first, Jiang Yu just glanced at it casually. During the festival, the general text messages were blessings, and it was the promotional information of the business. When Jiang Yu saw Wen Wenhao's name on it, she was stunned for a moment, and immediately walked to the bathroom on the first floor while everyone was not paying attention. Wen Wenhao's text message was very short. He said that he had an urgent matter to talk to Jiang Yu first. He also attached an address. Jiang Yu knew that it was the address of Wen Wenhao's private villa. She had been there twice before. Seeing that his revenge plan was about to be realized, could it be that Wen Wenhao was going to go back on his word? Or is he planning to get some benefits from me first? Jiang Yu's eyes flickered. She knew that Wen Wenhao's villa was not too far from the Su family. If she goes now, she should be able to return before 9 o'clock. If Wen Wenhao had any ill intentions, Jiang Yu clenched her fists. She is no longer her former self, and she will never be bullied again. Seeing Jiang Yu rushing out of the door, Su Wan didn't care. She continued to watch TV and text Su Rui. General Su, did the crazy woman go out? Su Wan, what did you do again? General Su, secret tilde Su Wan, do you want to watch a movie together tonight? General Su, Uni gave me 2 VIP tickets. I will wait for you at 10 o'clock. Su Wan, okay. After chatting with Su Rui, Su Wan remembered the 2 movie tickets that Jiang Yu gave her during the day. She couldn't help but send a message to Luo Yu. Do you want to watch Chaos in the Imperial Capital? Go to the cinema on the 5th floor of Xintiandi at 10 o'clock tonight. Cinderella's sister has the tickets in her hands. After sending the message, Su Wan called Shu Nuo again and asked her to meet at the entrance of the cinema at 9:40 p.m. After doing all this, Su Wan comfortably stretched her waist. In fact, the fate between people is really strange. Just like Shu Nuo has been silently in love with Luo Yu. And Luo Yu can't forget the sister of Cinderella at the ball. Are they really in love with each other? Unrequited love is like a dream that you can't wake up from. You would rather be intoxicated in it and don't know what time it is, but one day, this dream is forcibly interrupted. When you return from the dream to reality, when you really touch the person you have been secretly in love with for a long time, you approach him and understand him. Will he still be the same as in your dream? What makes you fall in love at first sight is always the appearance. And what makes you never forget is always the feeling of that moment. Su Wan has no intention to help them. She can only let Shu Nuo and Luo Yu not be missed by each other. As for whether they are suitable or not, it is also their feelings and their lives. Su Wan has never been so concerned about other people's affairs. This time, she just returned the favor she owed Shu Nuo and Luo Yu. When Su Wan was done with everything, Jiang Yu, who hurried out, had already taken a car to the door of Wen Wenhao's house. Looking at the brightly lit villa hall, Jiang Yu took a deep breath, then walked to the door and rang the doorbell. No one responded in the villa. Jiang Yu waited for a while and couldn't help but call Wen Wenhao's phone, but no one answered his phone. Jiang Yu hesitated and slammed the door of the villa. As a result, the door of the villa was slammed open by her at this time. The door is not locked. In such a strange situation, normal people should hesitate whether to call the police or simply turn around and leave, right? But our family's Jiangyu, as a female lead, how could she turn around and leave? The first rule of the female lead: if there are difficulties, you must go up. If there are no difficulties, you must create difficulties and go up unswervingly. Jiangyu only hesitated for a second and strode into the villa. The lights in the villa were on, but the living room was empty. From the second floor of the villa, there was a faint smell of blood. Jiangyu's face changed and she quickly went upstairs. The smell of blood came from a room on the second floor, and Jiangyu recognized that the room was Wen Wenhao's bedroom. Did something happen to him? Jiangyu anxiously pushed open the door and rushed in without any vigilance. Just as she rushed in, suddenly someone reached out from behind and covered her mouth and nose, accompanied by a special smell. Jiangyu only felt that her eyes were blurred. Before losing consciousness, she struggled to see Wen Wenhao's distorted face behind her. At 10 o'clock in the evening, the movie Chaos in the Imperial Capital was released on time. The cinema was dark and full of people who came to watch the premiere. Su Wan and Su Rui sat in the comfortable VIP lounge and watched Xiao Yunyi's famous work carefully. When the movie ended and came out of the screening hall, Su Wan found that there were really many female audiences who cried with red eyes. "Hey, isn't that Luo Yu?" When Su Rui came out, he saw his acquaintance in the crowd at a glance. "Is it Shu Nuo who is with him?" Su Rui was not familiar with Shu Nuo, but Su Wan once told him about Shu Nuo and Luo Yu. So Su Rui felt that the person around Luo Yu must be Shu Nuo. At this time, Shu Nuo also seemed to be moved by the plot of the movie. He took off his glasses and turned to secretly wipe his tears. "Well, I asked them to come. Jiangyu's 2 tickets should not be wasted." Hearing Su Rui's question, Su Wan also directly told him about the 2 people she invited to watch the movie. She believed that if Luo Yu really couldn't forget Cinderella's sister, he would definitely find that familiar figure in the crowd. Hearing Su Wan's words, Su Rui smiled and put his arm around her shoulder. "When did my wife become a matchmaker?" "Su Xiaowan, have you forgotten that you are a destroyer and have the task of tearing apart the CP?" Glancing at Su Rui's teasing eyes, Su Wan looked at Shu Nuo and Luo Yu in the crowd with a slightly meaningful look. Some people are only suitable to stay in the heart, and some people are only suitable to be remembered. Sometimes people who seem to be compatible in all aspects may not necessarily be able to last forever. In fact, I am not optimistic about them. Few people in this world will only fall in love with one person in their life. When you want to love, don't hesitate to love with all your might. In the end, even if you are not suitable, even if you have to separate, at least you have loved without regrets. Su Wan has loved, hated, deeply despaired and confused. Fortunately, she met Su Rui. If you also meet such a person, hesitation is bound to lose the other party. Chapter 157. In the dimly lit basement, the smell of blood was everywhere. Jiangyu gradually regained consciousness. She trembled and opened her eyes, but what came into view was Wen Wenhao's blood-red eyes. "Teacher Wenhao, what are you doing?" Jiangyu subconsciously struggled. At this time, she realized that her whole body was tied to a chair with a rope. Because she struggled a little fiercely, the whole chair fell to the ground, and her head also came into close contact with the ground. The sticky liquid occupied the side of Jiangyu's face. The red liquid was cold and sticky. "This is blood." "Ah!" Jiangyu screamed, and her whole face became pale. "What are you panicking for?" Wen Wenhao's voice was low and hoarse. "This is all my blood," Wen Wenhao said while squatting down in a weird motion, pinching Jiangyu's chin with his fingers, forcing her to look at him. At this time, Jiangyu discovered that although Wen Wenhao's upper body was still wearing a clean white shirt, his lower body had already been dyed red with blood. Jiangyu's eyes widened abruptly, and her pale lips were trembling. "It's all for you." Wen Wenhao's voice strangely rose. "Didn't you want to plot against Su Wan? The knockout drug I gave you just now was what you prepared for Su Wan, and..." Wen Wenhao's fingers unconsciously pinched Jiangyu's chin. "And these little props in the basement, I think you will like them, you will definitely like them." While speaking, Wen Wenhao suddenly stood up, picked up a whip on the ground and slammed it on Jiangyu's face. "Ah!" The huge whipping force was accompanied by sharp stinging pain, making Jiang Yu immediately cry out in pain, and her white and tender face was also whipped with a red bloodstain at this moment. Slut. Slut. It's all because of you. Everything is ruined. Wen Wenhao madly vented the despair and fear in his heart while whipping Jiang Yu, Su family villa. It was already midnight when Su Wan and Su Rui returned home. In the dark room, Su Rui quietly held Su Wan in his arms. Wife, let's leave this world quickly. Su Rui didn't like this world. It was full of idiots and lunatics. And he could only look but not eat. He was not happy at all. Su Wan rubbed against Su Rui's arms. Su Rui, did you get rid of Jiang Yu? Although she didn't know why Jiang Yu went out in a hurry, it was obvious that everything was done by Su Rui. Isn't there a saying that goes, the evils we bring upon ourselves are the hardest to bear? People like her and Wen Wenhao don't need anyone else to deal with them. They've dug their own graves. Yes, General Su didn't do anything. He just castrated Wen Wenhao and sealed his acupoints so that he wouldn't feel any pain for 4 hours. This beast actually dared to covet their family's Xiao Wan. He's simply tired of living. Jiang Yu knew that he was monitoring Su Wan's phone, but she didn't know that her phone had already been monitored by Su Rui. Compared to General Su's ruthlessness, female lead Darren, you're still too inexperienced. Su Rui doesn't have to do it himself. Wen Wenhao, who has been stimulated to madness by him, will definitely entertain Jiang Yu well. And when 4 hours had passed, Su Rui's lips curled into a mocking arc. Wen Wenhao, Jiang Yu, none of them can escape. Jiang Yu did not return overnight. The next day, the criminal police captain of City D came to the Su family early in the morning. It turned out that Wen Wenhao was found dead in the basement of his home in the early morning. The body was found by the hourly servant who came to his home to clean early in the morning. The police found blood, skin tissue, and hair belonging to another person at the scene of the crime. Jiang Yu's figure was also found in the surveillance video of the villa, so the police initially suspected that Jiang Yu was the murderer of Wen Wenhao. Hearing this news, Wen Shu fainted immediately. With the disappearance of Jiang Yu and the tragic death of Wen Wenhao, the ambiguous relationship between the two people and the hot video were once again mentioned by everyone. There were even well-informed people who said that the police also found several phone recordings in Wen Wenhao's home, which were all conversations about how he and Jiang Yu planned to frame Su Wan. The preliminary judgment was that Wen Wenhao deliberately recorded it, intending to threaten Jiang Yu in the future. Perhaps the two people turned against each other because of this. Because she couldn't stand the successive blows, Wen Shu's health was getting worse and worse. She was sometimes in a coma and sometimes awake. Every time she woke up, she would cry and call her daughter's name, and the more so, the more Su Haicheng felt sad for his disappointing daughter. On many sleepless nights, Su Haicheng couldn't help but think, if they didn't recognize Jiang Yu, then what would be the fate of their family? He, Wen Shu, and Su Wan, the family of 3 would always be the same as before, living a happy life. And Jiang Yu, who has been studying independently since she was a child, could still study, graduate, and even work and live safely even without the Su family. Unfortunately, everything has changed now, because Wen Shu was too weak, Su Wan applied for a suspension of school after school started and often accompanied her by the hospital bed. Do you feel guilty? Su Rui looked at the unconscious woman on the hospital bed and glanced at Su Wan, who looked a little haggard. Guilty. Su Wan smiled. The reason why wicked people are called wicked is because they never feel guilty. Soft-hearted people can't be mission enforcers. Although Wen Shu's current situation is because of Jiang Yu, and Jiang Yu's matter is inseparable from Su Wan and Su Rui, but Su Wan has always felt that she has a clear conscience. She will not do something like Jiang Yu while thinking that she was forced. She is innocent, she was forced, others can't help but forgive herself. These are just the thoughts of cowards deceiving themselves. Seeing that Su Wan's eyes were still serious and bright, Su Rui finally felt relieved. He saw that Su Wan had been taking care of Wen Shu day and night for the past few days. He was afraid that her heart would be left with a bad shadow because of this world. Fortunately, Su Wan's heart is still the same as before, and she will never be soft-hearted when she needs to be ruthless. So, when are we leaving? Since Jiang Yu killed Wen Wenhao and was wanted, Su Rui was reminded that the mission failed, which also means that Su Wan's mission was successful. According to Su Rui's idea, he will give all the shares of his company to the Su family and then propose to Su Wan, so that he can withdraw from this world without regret. After all, at Su Wan's age in this world, she can only do this. Marriage? That would be many years in the future. In this world, after meeting Jiang Yu, that crazy woman, General Su has stayed here long enough. He simply doesn't want to stay here for another minute, okay? However, Su Wan doesn't seem to want to withdraw from this world immediately. Hearing Su Rui's question, she stood up and tucked Wen Shu in the hospital bed, then turned her head and looked at Su Rui with a smile. Didn't I just say it? As for me, I'm an evil man. With that said, the smile on Su Wan's face became a little mysterious. Su Rui, do you know where Jiang Yu is? Jiang Yu? Su Rui frowned. That woman can hide, the police haven't caught her yet. Accompany me to a place tomorrow, let's see what Jiang Yu is doing. Chapter 158. The cold night of early spring was still cold to the bone. In the old district of the north of City D, it was already dark before 8 o'clock. There were very few pedestrians on the street, and the shops on both sides of the street had already closed for the day. The dim yellow street lamps cast long shadows on the road. A skinny shadow took advantage of the darkness to quickly shuttle through the quiet streets. At the corner of the street, a slow private car slowly drove over. Seeing the car, the shadow seemed to be frightened and abruptly rushed into a dead end at the side. There was no light in the alley, daily garbage was piled up on the walls, and near the garbage dump was the temporary residence of 2 stray dogs. Woof woof. Woof woof woof. The uninvited guest who suddenly rushed into the alley disturbed the stray dogs in the alley. They couldn't help barking twice, and the figure seemed to be anxious. She quickly raised her legs and kicked a few times in the darkness. Don't bark. Don't bark. The deliberately lowered female voice was hoarse and low. The 2 stray dogs, who were not strong, were kicked and immediately fell to the ground and whimpered. I told you not to bark. Jiang Yu tightened the thin coat on her body. When she landed, she frowned. She seemed to have stepped on something. This is, when Jiang Yu's eyes adapted to the darkness in the alley, she looked down at her feet, and her eyes widened. She stepped on a person's arm? In a panic, Jiang Yu subconsciously turned around and ran. Wen Wenhao's death had left an indelible shadow in her heart. That day, in that dark basement, she was abused by Wen Wenhao, who was in a delirious state, for several hours. Just when she was in despair and thought that she was going to die there, Wen Wenhao suddenly fell to the ground. His face was pale, and his whole body rolled on the ground in pain. Jiang Yu took advantage of Wen Wenhao struggling on the ground to grab a blade on the ground and cut the rope. At that time, she was already injured all over, but in order to survive, she still burst out her greatest potential. Just when she was running away, Wen Wenhao, who was still bleeding under her, suddenly rushed over and hugged her. While the 2 people were entangled, the blade in Jiang Yu's hand pierced into Wen Wenhao's heart. Bright red warm blood sprayed on Jiang Yu's face. At that moment, the world was blood red. She saw Wen Wenhao's eyes widen, and he lost his breath in front of her little by little. He died. Did he kill someone? Murder. Jiang Yu never thought that she would kill people, but she didn't mean it, she didn't mean it. Not me, not me. She dropped the blade in a panic and fled from Wen Wenhao's villa. Jiang Yu knew that she couldn't go home. She withdrew a sum of money from the bank's ATM for the first time, and then went into hiding. Now that she is wanted by the police in D City, Jiang Yu used her money to rent a dilapidated basement in the old city. She only dared to come out at night to get some fresh air and buy some daily necessities. She did not expect to encounter such a thing in this deserted alley. That person, is he dead? If he is dead, will he be discovered tomorrow? Will the police find her when they come here? For a while, Jiang Yu thought a lot in her heart, and she stopped leaving. No, I can't let such a thing happen. She is innocent. She didn't kill Wen Wenhao. Wen Wenhao wanted to kill her. She did it in self-defense. She doesn't want to go to jail, she doesn't want to be caught, she is innocent. Thinking like this, Jiang Yu gritted her teeth and turned back to the place where she had just stood. She bent down and pulled the arm hard to pull out the suspected dead man. What appeared in front of Jiang Yu was a man with a firm and deep outline. She had to say that this was a very handsome man, and at this time, his body was still warm, and he was still breathing. He was still alive, not dead. Jiang Yu finally breathed a sigh of relief, saw the blood on the man's chest, and looked at the obviously expensive watch on his wrist. Jiang Yu hesitated for a moment. This watch will be worth a lot of money if it is taken to the black market, but taking it without asking is stealing. Although she is wanted, Jiang Yu, who has always felt that she is above board, does not allow herself to be a thief at this time. After hesitating for a moment, Jiang Yu's eyes flashed, and finally she made up her mind. She held the unconscious man on her back and struggled to carry him out of the alley. Since this person was still alive, he had to save him. If he really had a high social status, then he would definitely not mistreat his savior. If he was a person with power and influence, maybe he could help him overturn the case. With such a complicated mood, Jiang Yu carried the man to her home. The man was seriously injured. In order to save him, Jiang Yu had to find a black market doctor and took out all her remaining money to perform surgery on him. After the surgery, the man was still in a coma, but his face was getting better and better. By the third night, Jiang Yu, who was penniless, was really hungry. She huddled in the dark and damp room and looked at the unconscious man on the small wooden bed. His diamond watch was still shining in the darkness. Jiang Yu swallowed her saliva, and her eyes were a little hesitant. Gulp, her stomach cried out again, and Jiang Yu, who was already lightheaded and weak, finally stood up slowly and walked to the man step by step. Her fingers were stiff, and finally touched the expensive watch. I'm really hungry. I'm going to mortgage it, so that everyone has something to eat. You have to spend money to change your medicine and eat, right? If you don't speak, I'll take it as you agree. With that said, Jiang Yu quickly pulled off the watch, and then hurriedly opened the door and ran out. After she left, two figures appeared quietly. The old basement was filled with a damp smell, and Su Rui couldn't help but frown. Looking at the man who was still unconscious on the small bed, Su Wn couldn't help but smile. Jinglai, I found you. 1 month later. Xiao Wn, do you remember this place? I remember I fainted around here. Jinglai drove his Hummer, parked the car on the side of the road, and stared at the old house in front of him. Jinglai's eyes were a little complicated. His most trusted men betrayed him, and the woman he loved most stabbed him in the back. That was a month ago. He desperately ran away, and finally passed out near here. At that time, he knew that he would always be found, and then he would be quietly killed. In this world, people die every day, and the death of a gang boss like him, who is full of evil, is regarded as eliminating evil for the people. Who cares who killed him and where he died? Jinglai really thought he was dead, so when he opened his eyes and saw the bright crystal lamp and the cold and beautiful girl in front of him, he thought he was in heaven. How can bad people be qualified to go to heaven? You're awake. The girl's voice was as cold as her expression. At that time, Jinglai reflected for a while before he realized that he did not die, he survived. And the girl in front of him must be his savior. Even if the sun was shining brightly, Su Wan's face still didn't show much warmth. She sat on the front passenger seat and coldly looked at Jinglai's side profile. Mr. Jing, how many times do you want me to tell you, I didn't save you? I still have to go back and prepare for the engagement ceremony. You pulled me here, what do you want to do? Xiao Wan, I like you. Jinglai stared at Su Wan's eyes seriously. Don't promise Xiao Qi. What he gave you, I can also give you. Billions, or even trillions. As long as there's a number, I, Jinglai, can do it. What do I need so much money for? And trillions, do you think it's ghost money? Su Wan was almost amused by Jinglai's words. Mr. Jing, I don't think we're very familiar. What do you like about me? Just because you think I saved you? If I didn't save you, would you still like me? Jinglai heard Su Wan's words and stared at her blankly. You saved me, even if it wasn't you. I still like you. It turned out that Boss Jing's setting was actually to fall in love at first sight with the savior he saw at first sight. Su Wan unfastened her seat belt and quickly jumped out of the car. Mr. Jing, I'll leave first. I think you can stroll around here a few more times. Maybe you can meet your true savior. As she spoke, Su Wan waved her hand with her back facing Jing Lai and quickly ran to the other side of the road to take a taxi and leave. Xiao Wan, Xiao Wan. Jing Lai followed her out of the car and shouted a few words towards the opposite side of the street. Unfortunately, Su Wan had already disappeared in a taxi. Ai! Jing Lai heaved a heavy sigh. He was about to drive and chase after her when the corner of his clothes was suddenly grabbed by someone. Jing Lai suddenly turned his head, his gaze cold. What appeared in front of him was a woman wearing an old man's jacket. Her complexion was sallow and her long hair was messy and dull. At this time, this sloppy-looking woman's eyes were shining as she looked at Jing Lai. Is that you? Do you still remember me? The woman's voice was very hoarse, and Jing Lai frowned slightly. Get lost. He didn't like people touching or approaching him, especially after what had happened. He had a very strong vigilance towards everyone. It's me. Jiang Yu wiped her face and turned to think that the other party didn't seem to have seen her face. Jiang Yu immediately took out the watch from her arms. Do you still recognize this watch? I redeemed it. Seeing the watch in Jiang Yu's hand, the disgust between Jing Lai's eyebrows became more obvious. When he woke up, he found that his watch was missing. At that time, he was still wondering if he had dropped it in a panic. It turned out that someone stole it while he was unconscious. It took Jiang Yu a month of hard and tiring work to redeem the watch. That night, she came back with money and food and found that the person she saved was gone. She thought that he had woken up and left by himself, so she waited in the basement for a few days and he didn't show up again. Later, Jiang Yu remembered the watch. She was afraid that the other party would misunderstand that she stole his watch and left without saying goodbye, so she tried her best to redeem the watch. These days, she has been wandering the streets, just to find that person and return the watch to him. This watch. I didn't mean to pawn it. You were seriously injured at that time, and I gave all my possessions to the doctor to save you. Jiang Yu saw Jing Lai looking at her with eyes full of disgust, and she immediately explained anxiously. Oh. After listening to her words, Jing Lai sneered. You mean, you saved me? How do you want me to thank you? How much do you want? No, I don't want money. I really didn't do it for money. Jiang Yu heard the sarcasm in Jing Lai's tone, and she immediately waved her hand desperately. No money? Then how about I give you the watch? Jing Lai looked at Jiang Yu's hands that were no longer white, and the watch in her palm seemed so out of place. No, I'm here to return the watch to you. I don't need it. I feel sick when someone else touched it. Jing Lai raised his hand and knocked the watch in Jiang Yu's palm to the ground. Since you don't want anything, then I'm leaving. As he spoke, he got on the car without hesitation, started the engine and left. No money? No watch? Then why did she bother to say that she saved him? If she really did a good deed without leaving her name, then she wouldn't have appeared. Since she appeared, she must have something to ask. Jing Lai has seen many such people. As Jing Lai expected, it didn't take long for him to see the woman again. She quietly lingered near the Su family. At that time, the Su family was holding the engagement banquet of Su Wan and Xiao Qi. Many local celebrities came, and the woman was hiding in a corner, staring at the Su family's villa with resentment. What do you want to do? Jing Lai's voice suddenly sounded behind Jiang Yu. Jiang Yu was scared and pale. When she saw Jing Lai's face, she couldn't help but look happy. It's you. Are you looking for me? Jing Lai. I asked what you are doing. Jing Lai asked while following Jiang Yu's gaze and saw Su Wan and Xiao Qi in pure white dresses. At this time, Jiang Yu's eyes began to blur, and she couldn't help but say, Do you know? I grew up with brother Xiao, and we have a good relationship. If it wasn't for that bitch Su Wan, we would have. Pa. A heavy slap landed on Jiang Yu's face, and she looked at the cold man beside her with stars in her eyes. You, what are you doing? Jing Lai stared coldly at Jiang Yu's red and swollen face. You deliberately approached me because of Xiao Wan? Xiao Wan? When Jiang Yu heard Jing Lai's name for Su Wan, she couldn't help but take a step back. Do you know Su Wan? More than no. Jing Lai raised an eyebrow at Jiangyu. She is my savior. No, how could it be? You were deceived by her. She is the most vicious liar in the world. Oh. Jiangyu's chin was suddenly pinched by Jing Lai. Jing Lai, who had been in the underworld since he was a child, his strength was by no means comparable to that of a playboy like Wen Wenhao. Jiangyu felt that her chin was about to be crushed, and Jing Lai still looked at her coldly. Who is the vicious liar? Who knows? In the Su family's villa, Su Wan and Su Rui's engagement ceremony has come to an end. Kiss. The surroundings were surrounded by classmates and friends who came to watch the ceremony, and even the popular Xiao Yuni pushed all the announcements and came back from thousands of miles away to attend his brother's engagement ceremony. Su Haicheng, who was sitting in the main seat, also showed a smile that had not been seen for a long time. Even Wen Shu, who was next to him, looked much better today than usual. Su Rui, wearing an elegant and handsome white suit, gently embraced Su Wan's slender waist. Wife, I love you. Me too. Su Wan gently closed her eyes and felt Su Rui's gentle kiss. She couldn't help but raise her lips and silently contacted the headquarters in her mind. Mission 002 completed, request to return. After the engagement ceremony, all the guests were sent away. Su Wan and Su Rui left the Su family. A few hours later, the two of them left the mission world one after another. Lost time and space. Su Rui came out of his mission cabin. Although he still didn't get a point, General Su still had a smile on his face, but this smile immediately disappeared after seeing an uninvited guest. Yun Sheng, who had been waiting for Su Rui, finally waited for Su Rui to leave the mission and return. Who knew that at the first sight of him, he felt that he was despised by the other party. Just now, he smiled so gently, but when he saw him, he immediately put away his smile with a cold face and whatnot. Yun Sheng asked himself that he was not so annoying. What's the matter? Su Rui came out of the connection cabin and looked at Yun Sheng doubtfully. Well, you'd better keep in mind the information that CGE gave you. Yun Sheng put the stack of information that Shu Ce gave him in Su Rui's hands, and then without waiting for Su Rui to ask, he quickly left. General Su looked at the information in his hands speechlessly. Rebirth Department, Qin Yu, Lin Ruo, Yi Kanhuan. Destruction Department, Yi Xin, Su Wan, Ding Jujia. This is. Su Rui's face involuntarily became solemn after seeing Su Wan's name. This was obviously an internal information about the leaders of other departments. The information about each person was very detailed. Plane Destroyer, Number 2. Su Wan, the darkened from the collapsed plane, executor of the plane, Shu Ce. Seeing the first line of Su Wan's information, Su Rui's eyes stayed on Shu Ce's name for a long time. Destroyer's headquarters. When Su Wan returned to Number 2 execution room, she did not check her points as usual. She first looked up the details of the world's mission and follow-up shortly after she and Su Rui left, when Shu also passed away. Su Haicheng used all his property for charity. He himself also left D-City and went to the mountainous area where he first met Wen Shu to be a public welfare volunteer. Although Xiao Yuni's journey in the entertainment circle was not smooth, he still became the hottest star. In that flashy and complicated circle, he always maintained his purest original heart and never changed. Luo Yu was successfully admitted to B-City's university and was destined to embark on the path of an official in the future, but Shunuo chose a university in the south in the second year. Everyone has their own pursuits and dreams. They have never given up on pursuing. As for love, once they have loved, they will no longer have regrets. As for Jiangyu, she has been pestering Jing Lai, wanting to prove to Jing Lai that she was the one who really saved him. It was also because of her persistent pestering that she finally angered Jing Lai, and her end can be imagined. Su Wan really doesn't understand this kind of person. Sometimes, meaningless explanations and entanglements will only make your life worse. Why can't some people figure it out? Let the past be the past. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.